Chapter 1156. Tang Xiu also nodded. That's true. Then, according to Teacher Xie's suggestion, where should we go? You have to do the exact opposite of that. There are so many of us. It's easy to leave footprints on the road, and I'm afraid we'll meet the pursuers. Xie was a little hesitant. Master Zhong muttered, why don't we go to Princess Consort's farmstead? On the way from the capital to Huichuan County, there are several farmsteads that belong to Princess Consort. Everyone looked at Master Zhong. Xie was a little surprised. Aren't Princess Consort's farmsteads mainly in the south? Yes, but Princess Consort said that we have to be prepared in order to be safe. It's not wrong to buy more farmsteads in our spare time. The Jinghu Wei did not know much about Princess Consort, but they admired her. As for Jing Zhe, Liao Zhibing, and the others, they had followed Qin Yining for many years and were already convinced by her ability. She was not as surprised as these people. Since that's the case, let's go to Princess Consort's farmstead. Tang Xiu said, I'll take a group of people and rush to Lu Village first. We'll leave some footprints along the way to attract attention. You can take this opportunity to escort Princess Consort to recuperate. Xie lowered her head and thought for a moment. In the end, she nodded and said, that's good. If we go north, we'll go to the border. Why don't you go directly to Wang Yi and leave some footprints along the way? It'll be even better if you can blatantly pretend to be Princess Consort. If you meet pursuers, you can split up and reunite in front of Wang Ye's tent at the border. That's good, but Princess Consort's place? Princess Consort shouldn't have too many people around her. Xie looked at the Tianji sect disciples and smiled. With the disciples of the Tianji sect, Princess Consort should be safe. Why don't we let all the Jinghu Wei return to Wang Ye's side? Wang Yi needs people. The Tianji sect disciples, led by Fang Hailing, all cupped their hands. Jingzhe said, don't worry, we'll follow Princess Consort at all times. If there are too many people, it will attract attention. Liao Zhibing also said, that's right. Our brothers in the Qingtian Alliance are all over the martial world. As long as the Alliance Master says the word, isn't it easy to find people to use? Tang Xiu heard Liao Zhibing say the same thing and thought carefully about Xieyu's analysis. She felt that everything was reasonable. If they stayed, they would become a bigger target. It was better to attract the attention of the pursuers for Wang Fei and meet up with Wang Yi at the same time. This way, they could tell Wang Yi about Wang Fei's situation and also let Wang Yi have more people on their side. Tang Xiu nodded. All right, I'll do as you say. After saying that, he could not help but look at Ji Yun, who was squatting at the entrance of the tree hole and taking care of Qin Yining. Ji Yun smiled at Tang Xiu. Be careful on the road. Tang Xiu's face instantly lit up with a happy smile. She was like a child who had just received a piece of candy. She was so happy that she almost spun in a circle. All right, you two. Take care. Ji Yun nodded with a smile. Xie couldn't help but smile when she saw them act like this. At a time when they were being pursued and Wang Fei was seriously injured, this warmth was enough to light a spark of hope in people's hearts. After the discussion, Tang Xiu led all the Jinghu Wei to bow to Xie and the others. Then she turned and went into the forest to find weapons and horses. She took the carriage that Qin Yining had been on and headed north in the direction of Lujiao village. She purposefully left horse, hoof prints, and carriage tracks in the snow. The rest of the people went to find long branches and used dried branches, vines, and cloaks to make simple beds. They put Qin Yining and Tian Jizi on them and took turns to carry them in the opposite direction of the forest to the fields that Master Zhong had spoken of. In Jing, Li Qitian heard that the assassination attempt had failed and was furious. He raised his hand and threw the inkstone hard at the shoulder of the Jingji Guard Lieutenant Wang Maoji. Rice buckets. All of you are rice buckets. Soldiers are trained for 1,000 days to be used in a single moment. You can't beat the Tatars, but you can't even kill a woman. What is the use of Zhen raising you rice buckets? Wang Maoji knelt on one knee and bowed his head, not saying a word. Xiong Jin Shuwei and the other palace attendants had already obediently bowed their heads and retreated to the most inconspicuous corner. Li Qitian paced back and forth angrily. What a good opportunity! There are so many of you, but you can't even take 2 infants back. You can't even kill a weak woman who doesn't even have the strength to truss a chicken. What are you all doing? Your Majesty, please quell your anger. Wang Maoji bowed. Quell your anger. Quell your anger. All day long, you only know how to quell Zhen's anger, but you all never let Zhen be at ease. Tell me, what should we do next? Wang Maoji raised his hands and quickly looked at Li Qitian. He then said in a low voice, "This subject will continue to track down the fugitive." Li Qitian took a deep breath and said, "I will give you 7 days. If you can't bring the corpse of the Prince Zhongshuan's consort and the 2 little brats to Zhen, then you all can just wait." Yes. Wang Maoji hurriedly kowtowed and carefully retreated. When he arrived outside Yangxin Palace Hall, he let out a long breath. Percent Pang Xiao dressed properly and turned around to pick up the horsewhip on the table. Jiziyu pulled Pang Xiao back. His handsome face, which could be said to be peerlessly beautiful, was wrinkled like a bitter gourd. Meng Jishi, you can't go back. If you go back, you will die without a doubt. I know, but so what? Pang Xiao's face was full of stubble that he didn't care about. His hair was also casually tied up with a hairband. His entire person exuded a sense of decadence, but it made him look even more handsome and steady. She suffered like this because of me. I couldn't give her a stable life. I made her work hard while she was pregnant. Not only that, I also caused her to be abused like that. She was such a proud person. When has she ever suffered such humiliation? Thinking about it, every time she suffered, it was because of me. Pang Xiao grabbed his hair in frustration. Jiziyu saw Pang Xiao like this and also frowned deeply. Jishi, you don't have to be like this. This isn't your fault. You can only blame fate. Since she was willing to follow you, she knew what kind of hardships she would have to endure as your consort. She was willing. But I wasn't willing. I pursued her selfishly from the beginning. I unilaterally took her under my wing so that I could give her a good life. I wanted her to live a happy and peaceful life. But what kind of life did I give her? Pang Xiao shook his head. I really can't take it anymore. Alan, do you know what this feels like? Watching her suffer while I am thousands of miles away, unable to do anything but watch. This feeling is really too. I know. Jiziyu lowered his eyes and smiled bitterly. Am I not the same? I can't help. Pang Xiao was immersed in his own thoughts and didn't think carefully about Jiziyu's words. The only thing I can do now is to go back obediently and wait for the Emperor to punish me. What's the use of that? If you go to die, will the Emperor let the Qin clan and your child go? But I can't think of any other way. Pang Xiao suddenly turned around. His phoenix eyes were bloodshot and his expression was unprecedentedly crazy. Jiziyu was shocked. He stepped forward and grabbed Pang Xiao's shoulder. He whispered, "Rebel." Pang Xiao was stunned. "Rebel, lead the troops and fight back." Jiziyu continued, "You don't have to worry. I will help you." Pang Xiao never thought that Jiziyu would say this. For a moment, he was really tempted. If he could really lead the troops and fight back, would Li Qitian still refuse to submit? How dare he treat his sister Yi like that? However, such an irrational thought only lasted for a moment. Pang Xiao smiled bitterly and shook his head. If I lead the troops and rebel against Li Qitian for my own selfish reasons, wouldn't I become the same kind of person as Li Qitian? Right now, the war with the Tatars is in a state of anxiety. In a few more days, I think the Tatars will reach the desert of the dead zone. If I lead the troops in rebellion at this critical moment, won't I give the Tatars a chance to catch their breath? What's more, these people are following me to fight against the Tatars, to drive out the people who invaded them and kill their families. But if I ask them to rebel against the imperial court and work for me alone, would they really be willing? I don't want so many people to work for my decision, and I don't want anyone to be kept in the dark. The Emperor's actions are too extreme, but that's between me and him. There's really no need to cause so many consequences. Dezhou has just been peaceful for a long time. Jiziyu looked at Pang Xiao's serious expression and shook his head. You're still the same. You're so stubborn. It's not that I'm stubborn. Pang Xiao sighed. There are some rules that I must abide by. There are some bottom lines that I must not abandon. Then do you really plan to go back and die? Just for your princess and your child? In this world, is there anyone else who can make me so willing to die? Jiziu's lips moved. After a while, he sighed silently. I don't agree. Alon. Pang Xiao patted Jiziu's shoulder. Good brother, I know you're doing this for my own good. But there are some things that you have to do even if you know the consequences. This is the principle and bottom line of life. I'm a man, a husband, and the father of a child. I can't just stand by and watch them die. Jiziu pursed his lips and didn't say anything. He just looked at him silently. Pang Xiao patted him on the shoulder. Cheer up. I'll leave Tayton to you. I believe in your ability. It won't be a problem for you to deal with Si Qin and Lu Hong. Have you really decided to go? If you go, we might. Pang Xiao heard this and sighed. Alon, I know. I'm already satisfied to have a brother like you in this life. Our kowtowing to the ground wasn't in vain. You've helped me a lot over the years. You're my best friend, and my blood is thicker than water. This will never change. Even if I lose my life in the capital this time, the brotherhood between us will not change. Jiziu pursed his lips even tighter. His peach blossom eyes became misty. This man who looked cold and decisive on the outside was so sad at this moment. Chapter 11:57. Pang Xiao shook his head and patted Jiziu's shoulder. Good brother, I appreciate your kindness. You have a bright future ahead of you, so there's no need to delay it for me. Besides, can you really let go of the war at the front line? You're more familiar with Beijing than I am. You have fought against the Tayton for many years. Now that you have finally seen the light, wouldn't it be a pity to give up? As generals, we have to think not only for ourselves, but also for the people. If we give up now, what will happen to the people at the border? Jiziu's heart was touched. His expression wavered for a moment, but in the blink of an eye, he said firmly, Even so, I won't allow you to go back and die. I have made up my mind. Alon, there's no need to stop me. Pang Xiao cupped his hands and bade farewell to Jiziu solemnly. He turned around and strode out of the tent. Mu Jinghu stood in front of the tent. Have you decided to go back? Yes. Pang Xiao smiled. However, when he looked up, he saw that the soldiers in the army were all gathered around him. The South Ping Army, Tiger Army, Dragon Stallion Army, and the soldiers and horses that had been recruited along the way had followed Pang Xiao and Jiziu for a long time. They had long trusted them. At this moment, they were all looking at Pang Xiao with concern. Wang Yi, are you going back to the capital? Yes. Your Majesty's decree. Even though this is a critical moment, I have no choice but to go back. Pang Xiao's voice was blown away by the strong wind. His messy hair was blown up by the wind, revealing a sincere smile on his handsome face. In the future, we will have to rely on all of you to fight against the Tatars. Duke Dinghua's soldiers are like gods. I believe that with Duke Dinghua and all of you holding the fort, it will be easy to deal with the Tayton. When the soldiers heard this, they were not as excited as they usually were. Everyone's gaze was gloomy and complicated. Su Weiji sighed. Wang Yu will definitely die if he returns to the capital. Are you really not going to reconsider? Pang Xiao smiled and shook his head gently. Huzi wiped his face and suddenly threw his saber to the ground. Wang Yi, I'll go back with you. If we die together. The Son of Heaven is heartless and unrighteous. You were fighting the Tatars at the border, but the Son of Heaven kidnapped your wife and child. You're loyal and devoted, but you've always been doubted and suppressed. When you led our South pacifying army brothers and new recruits back to the capital, the old emperor didn't even let us through the city gates. I knew from the start that your loyalty was not worth it. Now his wife and child have been kidnapped. Huzi turned around, stomped his feet, and roared. We've been risking our lives on the front lines, but our homes have been raided by our own people. Brothers, do you think this is something that humans should do? Everyone had heard about how the emperor treated Pang Xiao. These days, there were also many rumors about the emperor urgently summoning Pang Xiao back to the capital. Everyone had already cursed Huzi in private when he was angry. They were a group of men who didn't fear death and fought with the Tatars. If their wives and children were kidnapped because they were afraid of them, how would they feel? Moreover, they had always admired Pang Xiao. He was always at the front of the charge and always the last to retreat. Although he was a prince, he ate and lived with them. He never gave them any special treatment. When he had nothing to do, He would train with them and practice fist and saber techniques. They were comrades who had rolled in the trenches together, so their relationship was naturally not ordinary. Now, the person they respected was being humiliated by the Son of Heaven. How could this group of hot-blooded men endure this? This is too much. What is this? When we were hungry, your Majesty didn't give us enough to eat. It was Wang Yi and Princess Consort who used their own money to feed us. Why didn't your Majesty stop it at that time? The Emperor's actions are too disappointing. Isn't it because he felt that Wang Yi had military power and he was worried? But Wang Yi didn't want to take his position. If Wang Yi really wanted to take it, he would have become the emperor a few years ago. Sure, you don't want to live anymore. What's there to be afraid of? If you make me angry, I'll rebel against that son of a bitch. Yes, rebel against that son of a bitch. The soldiers' morale was high and they all roared. As long as Pang Xiao nodded, they could immediately rebel. Pang Xiao helplessly held his forehead and waved his hand. Okay, everyone, quiet down. The roars that were like waves gradually subsided. In the camp that was like a sea of white, many people had gradually gathered in this direction. Pang Xiao saw that the situation was getting out of control and hurriedly reprimanded loudly. Everyone, go do what you need to do. Don't gather here. The Titan can organize a counterattack at any time. Why are you all gathering here? Disperse. Go back to your positions. Hearing this, the soldiers slightly hesitated. Some continued to patrol, but others stayed where they were and inquired about the situation at Pang Xiao's side from afar. Currently, more than 400,000 men and horses were stationed in the main camp. The tents stretched for several dozen li, forming a white barrier between the Tatar and the Great Zhou Empire. Just by gathering the officers and soldiers around the central tent, it was enough to create a huge commotion. If they were really angered and caused a mutiny, the situation would be out of control. Pang Xiao bowed to the people around him. Everyone, please calm down and listen to me. The emperor urgently summoned me back to the capital. Perhaps there is something important to discuss. I have been delayed for many days and am now planning to listen to the imperial edict. Everyone, please stay here and listen to Duke Dingwa's arrangements. Only by breaking the Titan and protecting the mountains and rivers can you live up to being a man of the Zhou. Wang Yi, don't try to comfort us. Your Majesty wants you back because he wants your life. If the emperor wants the subject to die, the subject must die. I, Pang Xiao, am loyal to the Zhou. I can't have any thoughts of overstepping my boundaries. Even if I die, I have no regrets. Wang Yi, I have made up my mind. Everyone, please disperse. Pang Xiao bowed again. The soldiers were also helpless at this time. After all, their words carried little weight. If the emperor wanted to make things difficult for Wang Yi, what could they do? Everyone dispersed dispiritedly and made way for Pang Xiao. Pang Xiao sighed and turned to look at Jiziyu, who was pursing his lips. Alan, I'll have to trouble you in the future. Jiziyu clenched his fists by his side. The veins on his forehead bulged, and his whole body trembled. Pang Xiao smiled at him and turned to leave. His messy long hair and black robe fluttered in the wind and snow. Just by looking at his back, one could feel the desolation of a hero at the end of his road. Everywhere he passed, the soldiers looked at him with complicated expressions. Some were anxious, some urged him to stay, and some wiped their tears with their sleeves. Huzi took a deep breath, picked up his saber, and chased after him. Su Weiji also cupped his hands in farewell to Jiziyu and resolutely followed. Pang Xiao heard the footsteps and turned to look. He smiled helplessly and said, "You guys can stay. Mr. Su is a great talent. He can help Duke Ding." Su Weiji waved his hand and said in a carefree manner, "This old man is old. It's already worth it to be able to follow Wang Yi for so many years. Even if the capital is a dragon's pool or a tiger's den, this old man will accompany Wang Yi." Yes, Huzi also said, after following Wang Yi for so many years, even if you lose your head, you still want to leave me behind. As soon as Huzi finished speaking, dozens of Jinghu Wei also lined up. They neatly walked to the front and cupped their hands. Although they didn't say much, their intentions were obvious. Pang Zhao's phoenix eyes turned red. but he just smiled and said, "Why do you have to do this? We pledge our lives to follow Wang Yi." Huzi and Jinghu Wei saluted together. Pang Xiao felt helpless. He knew that going back was a dead end. He didn't want to take these people with him to die, but they insisted on following him. For a moment, Pang Xiao couldn't think of a way to dissuade these people. He didn't even know how to find a way to survive in the capital. Just as Pang Xiao was in a dilemma, a person suddenly rushed in from outside the camp. Reporting to Wang Yi, bodyguard Tang Xiu has brought people back. Pang Xiao paused and hurriedly said, "Quickly invite them in." With Tang Xiu's return, Pang Xiao wasn't in a hurry to leave. He returned to the tent. Su Weiji vaguely felt that the situation had taken a turn for the better. He discussed with Ji Ziyu to first disperse the soldiers. Ji Ziyu had a high reputation in the army. When he gave the order, no one dared to disobey. The crowd quickly dispersed. Not long after, Tang Xiu brought a group of Jinghu Wei to the main tent. "Wang Yi, why are you back? How is Wang Fei?" Tang Xiu lowered her eyes and said, "Reporting to Wang Yi, 5 days ago." Pang Xiao listened to Tang Xiu's report, and his brows gradually furrowed. When he heard that Qin Yining had suffered many injuries when he escaped from the capital, he was already furious. When he heard that they had been chased and Qin Yining's shoulder had been pierced by an arrow, his heart was in pain and his eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. "Wang Yi, it's all thanks to Tian Jizi this time. If she hadn't dared to stand in front of Wang Fei at the last moment, Wang Fei might have. But Tian Jizi has been shot in the back and won the leg." Bing Tang Girl said that Tian Jizi's situation is not optimistic. Mu Jinghu's face turned pale when he heard this. "You mean Shizuan might have?" Tang Xiu nodded and said, "That arrow hit her vitals and she lost a lot of blood. We rushed to distract the pursuers to find Wang Yi, so we don't know what happened after that." In fact, Bing Tang Girl said that Wang Fei and Tian Jizi's situation was not optimistic. Luckily, Little Master and Little Miss were well protected and did not lose a single hair. Pang Xiao stared blankly in front of him. His eyes were bloodshot and his body swayed. He staggered 2 steps before he managed to stabilize himself. Pang Xiao could not imagine how hopeless Qin Yining must have felt when she was being chased in the forest. When she had gone to distract the pursuers to protect the children, was she already prepared to die? If she had died then, he would have been so far away and would only know about her news many days later. He could not do anything for her, not even in time to cry. In her hopeless moments, did she feel resentment or hatred? Did she regret marrying him? If she was no longer around, what was the use of having only the children alive? He could have many children, but there was only one sister, Yi. Where are they going now? Pang Zhao's voice was hoarse, as if it did not come from him. Tang Xiu said, "Master Zhong said that Wang Fei also has a business in the north. At this moment, they are trying their best to avoid the pursuers and bring Wang Fei and Tian Jizi to their business for treatment. I think that once they are settled, Mr. Xie will think of a way to send a letter to Wang Yi." Chapter 1158. Jiziyu did not think so much and said in a low voice, "Jishi, since the Qin clan has escaped, there is no need for you to return to the capital." Pang Xiao heard this and slowly nodded. "You are right. There is no use for me to go back now." When she needed him the most, he was not by her side. What was the use of him going back now? Seeing that Pang Xiao did not insist on going to his death, Jiziyu finally sighed in relief. But the atmosphere in the tent was too tense. Jiziyu did not know what to say. Pang Xiao took 2 steps back and sat down on the wooden stool. He asked, "I saw that you brought back a lot of Jinghu Wei. It was Sir Xie's idea. Since Wang Fei wants to hide, it will be too eye-catching if there are too many people." "I see. You have all worked hard. Go and rest first." "Yes." Tang Xiu and the others bowed and left the tent in a single file. Jiziyu took a step forward and comforted her. "Don't worry. Heaven helps the worthy. Since you were able to escape, nothing will happen to you." "Yes." Pang Xiao nodded, but his expression was full of panic. Jiziyu squatted in front of Pang Xiao and looked at him at eye level. He said, "It is time for you to do something. If you let this go, Who knows what the Emperor will do next? He is forcing you into a dead end. Are you going to sit and wait for death? Or do you want to abandon the war at the front line and go back to accompany the Qin clan? Isn't that too irresponsible? I will not do that. Pang Xiao smiled and said energetically, since they are no longer under the Emperor's control, I do not need to go back and die. He turned to look at Su Weiji. Sir Su, I have an idea. Wang Yi, please speak. Su Weiji cupped his hands. Pang Xiao thought and said a few words in a low voice. Percent in a manor in Shirley Village on the outskirts of Huichuan County. Qin Yining leaned against the pillow with a pale face and urged, All right, quickly carry the brothers and sisters down. Don't let them die here. Yes. The wet nurses bowed respectfully and carried the children away. Jiyan brought over a small white porcelain bowl. Wang Fei, take the medicine. It's not hot now. Qin Yining nodded and impatiently ate the bitter medicine with a spoon. She took the bowl and drank in one gulp. It was so bitter that she frowned and let out a sigh of relief. Yuanyan hurriedly brought her some warm water to rinse her mouth. Qin Yining gulped down a small bowl of water and sighed. I'm not picky, and I'm not afraid of bitter things. But this time, I don't know if Bing Tang is deliberately playing tricks on me, but the medicine is fishy and bitter. It's so bitter that I feel nauseous when I put it in my mouth. Wang Fei, good medicine tastes bitter. You were seriously injured this time. Bing Tang said that it will take at least 3 to 5 years for you to recover. You have to take medicine during this period of time. You should get used to it as soon as possible. I have to get used to it even if I don't want to. Qin Yining sighed and patted her pale face. She asked, How is Tianjizi? Jiyan shook her head with a grave expression. Qin Yining sat up with difficulty. Help me find thick clothes. I want to see her. Wang Fei, it's cold outside. Your fever has just subsided. Don't be exposed to the cold wind. It's fine. She did it to save me. Jiyan knew Qin Yining's stubborn temper. Once she made a decision, she would not change her mind. She could only helplessly take a warm cloak and drape it over Qin Yining. She also took a guanyin bag and put on her. After covering her completely, she carefully helped her up and went to the main room next door. Outside the door was a spacious courtyard. Not far away, Jing Zhe and the others were practicing martial arts on the open ground. When they saw Qin Yining come out, they hurriedly rushed over. Master, Qin Yining's pale face had a smile. She waved her hand and said, I'm fine. You could go to your own things. Yes. Everyone bowed and left. Qin Yining went next door. As soon as she lifted the curtain, a hot wind with the smell of bitter medicine hit her face. There were more than 10 men dressed like farmers sitting outside. They were all members of the Tianji sect. When they saw Qin Yining, Fong Hailing led everyone to stand up and cup their hands in greeting to Qin Yining. Qin Yining nodded in greeting. He went around the animal skin screen and turned a corner. He lifted the curtain and entered the inner room. Bing Tang was sitting on a small stool beside the heated Kong. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. Tianjizi had lost a lot of weight. She was lying on the heated Kong with her eyes slightly open. Her dry and pale lips were moving, as if she was saying something. Xiangu, how are you? When Qin Yining came closer, Bing Tang hurriedly stood up and made room for her. Tianjizi rolled her eyes at Qin Yining. Her dry and hoarse voice was extremely weak. This Xiangu is lost this time. When he heard Tianjizi say this, Qin Yining's heart skipped a beat. An indescribable bitterness filled his heart. That won't happen. We will do our best to save you. I've already ordered people to find the herbs you need. It's a waste of effort. Just now, I try to persuade Miss Tang. Life and death are fated. Tianjizi glared at Qin Yining again. This old man originally had a lifespan of 113 years and would die in late autumn. But now, I've met a troublemaker like you. I'm only 60 years old, and I'm going to die. It's all your fault that I've lost half of my lifespan. Qin Yining's heart was heavy. He shook his head and said, You'll be fine. This is all fate. Tianjizi coughed a few times and said weakly, I can predict anything. I can predict this and that, but I can't predict a variable like you. Whenever I meet you, I can't predict what will happen, and my plans will change. Even my own life will be at stake. I thought that with my heroic reputation, I couldn't be considered a good person. I didn't expect that I would actually die to save a troublemaker like you. Cough, 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 cough. Xiangu, calm down. Don't say any more. Qin Yining's heart was filled with mixed feelings. His face became even paler. Tianjizi coughed for a long time and panted a few times. When she opened her mouth again, her voice was even weaker. Forget it. Since it's already like this, I have nothing to say. From now on, you can accompany Pang Xiao well. Hearing her words, which sounded like she was entrusting him to her, Qin Yining finally burst into tears. Tears slid down her pale cheeks, fell on her fur collar, and slid down the back of her hand. Tianjizi saw her tears and snorted. Forget it. You're not a bad person. I saved you, and it's a good deed. Right now, I really can't bear to leave. Xiangu, what other wishes do you have? Tell me. If I can do it, I'll do my best. Tianjizi closed her eyes, as if it took a lot of energy to open them and speak. She said in a tired voice, I only have one wish. What's the use of telling you? You're a variable. What do you guarantee? Right now, I'm just waiting for a piece of news. Qin Yining sniffled. Jiyan took a handkerchief and wiped her tears. She gently advised, Princess Consort, take care of your body. You haven't recovered yet. Be careful not to cry too much, and your head will hurt again. Tianjizi seemed to be impatient and rolled her eyes again. Qin Yining took the handkerchief and wiped her tears. She rubbed her temples and said, If something happens to you, how am I going to explain it to young Master Mu? Xiangu, you have to hold on. Although the situation looks dangerous, there's still a chance. Tianjizi closed her eyes as if she was extremely tired. She didn't want to speak again. Qin Yining looked at Tianjizi's weak appearance, and her heart was filled with guilt. At this time, she especially hated her own incompetence. This feeling of watching others sacrifice themselves to save her and being unable to do anything was worse than cutting her flesh with a blunt knife. Qin Yining couldn't forget Leiden's death for the rest of her life. Looking back, there was also Roland, who died to save her. There were also many bodyguards who risked their lives to save her when she was in danger. She didn't even know if they were alive. Thinking about it carefully, she was able to live until today because of the sacrifices of many people. She didn't know how heavy a soul could be in a person's life. Princess Consort. Xieyu's slightly hurried voice suddenly came from outside the door. Qin Yining stood up with Ji Yun's help and slowly walked to the door. Sir Xie? Xieyu's expression was somewhat excited. She said in a deep voice, Wang Yi has issued a declaration of war in the northern border. What? Qin Yining was extremely shocked. Xieyu said, This news has already spread to us. Presumably, everyone in the capital already knows about it. Wang Yi's declaration of war didn't condemn the emperor, but it already made his intentions clear. Wang Yi said that his intention was to fight for the people of the world and for the peace of Dezhou. However, Your Majesty listened to the slanderous words of a villain and refused to believe a loyal official. Instead, he wanted to rape the family of a loyal official. This caused the soldiers who were fighting outside to be bitterly disappointed. However, for the peace of the people, he won't give up on the front lines at this critical juncture of the Taytan War. However, the Emperor's actions, ask yourself honestly, don't you feel ashamed at all? Qin Yining's fists, which were hidden in his sleeves, gradually tightened. From Xieyu's narration, it was enough to see Pang Zhao's resentment and helplessness at this time. It also made his position clear to everyone in the world. Li Qiqian's previous actions had already aroused a lot of discussion and dissatisfaction. In addition, it wasn't a secret that she had been locked up in a prisoner carriage and paraded through the streets all day long. She was also being hunted down. Once this declaration of war was released, the world would definitely be filled with discontent. Li Qiqian would probably gnash his teeth in hatred and stomp his feet in anger. He really didn't know what kind of crazy things Li Qiqian would do after this. But thinking about it again, Pang Xiao was currently at the front lines. Other than taking her and the two children as hostages, Li Qiqian really didn't have any other way to keep Pang Xiao in check. After all of the soldiers and horses in the Titan Rebellion were paid by themselves. Qin Yining couldn't help but raise the corner of his lips. His surprise turned into joy. The day he had been waiting for had finally arrived. Shizuan, Shizuan. Suddenly, the sound of Bing Tang's exclamation came from inside the room. Qin Yining was startled. He immediately turned around and was about to go inside the room. However, the people of the Tianji sect were a step faster. More than 10 people rushed in and pushed aside the Bing Tang by the bed. They all knelt down and said, "Sect leader." Chapter 11:59. Xiangu. Qin Yining quickly walked in, but was blocked by the crying disciples of the Tianji sect. Fang Hailing, who had been reasonable at first, was now like an angry beast. She roared in grief. "It's all because of you that our sect master died. How dare you come closer? Sect master! Sect master!" The rest of the disciples knelt by the bed and desperately checked Tian Jizi's breathing. She was already dead. They were so scared that they sat on the ground and cried loudly. The crying in the room was so loud that it shook the earth and the mountains. Bing Tang was already lying on the wall, sobbing silently. Qin Yining closed his eyes and raised his head. His tears were already flowing. Tian Jizi had been busy her entire life, trying to reach the top of the Ziwei Emperor's star. Qin Yining sometimes felt that it was hard for her. She lived in a chaotic world and was trapped in the struggle of the imperial court. But now that she thought about it, no matter how carefree Tian Jizi was, she was still a woman. Because she joined the Tianji sect, she became famous at a young age. Jing Tong's divination and geomancy techniques were enough to carry the world's affairs on his shoulders. How could she have it easy? Sometimes they had different standpoints and different goals. But Tian Jizi was someone who only wanted to do one thing her entire life. In the end, she was willing to sacrifice her life to achieve her goal. It was truly admirable. But now, this person had died in order to save her. Qin Yining couldn't hold it in any longer and burst into tears. No one would have thought that the Xiangu, who had once caused so much trouble, would lose her life like this. Bing Tang and Tian Jizi had a master and disciple relationship. She hadn't repaid the favor of Tian Jizi for protecting her. Now that Tian Jizi had died, she couldn't help but cry. The disciples of the Tianji sect were crying even harder. The entire farm was immersed in a sorrowful atmosphere. After a long time, Xiaoyu wiped the corners of her eyes and said, "Princess, I'll go prepare the birthday materials. Choose the best for everything." Qin Yining's voice was hoarse from crying, and his eyes were red and swollen. Fang Hailing wiped her tears with her sleeve and stood up. "There's no need. Our heaven's secret sect will take care of the sovereign's funeral. There's no need for Princess Consort to worry." Qin Yining knew that Tian Jizi had died in order to save her, so the people of the Tianji sect naturally held a grudge against her. This was also her fault. Qin Yining said warmly, "Of course I have to contribute to Fairy's funeral. Please don't refuse. There's really no need." Fang Hailing said in a deep voice, "The people of our heaven's secret sect naturally have to be buried in the heaven's secret valley. What's more, when the sect master came this time, he had already predicted that things would not bode well for him. He had already made arrangements for his funeral." Fang Hailing choked with sobs again. She wiped her tears with her sleeve and said, "Sect master said that she will sleep in Tianji Valley in the future and will not leave." Qin Yining bit her lower lip and lowered her head. Her tears gushed out again. She really wanted to help, but the people of the Heaven's secret sect seemed to hate her and would not allow her subordinates to intervene. Fang Hailing ordered people to prepare a coffin and a carriage. She didn't even prepare a mourning hall. She wrapped Tian Jizi's body in a white cloth, carried it into the coffin, and put it on the carriage. Qin Yining chased out of the door. "Are you really not going to set up a mourning hall? This is inconsistent with the customs. There's no need for you to worry." Fang Hailing interrupted Qin Yining and said, "Our heaven's secret sect has our own rules. It's cold, and it's convenient for us to return to Tianji Valley. In order to let the sect master rest in peace, Princess Consort, please don't say anything more." Qin Yining really didn't understand the rules of the Heaven's Secret sect. Moreover, the other party clearly had resentment and was brooding over Tian Jizi's death. Qin Yining frowned and took a step back. Bing Tang and Ji Yun supported her on both sides. Princess Consort, take care of yourself. The Heaven's Secret sect has its own rules. Just let them be. That's right, Princess Consort. Your body hasn't recovered yet. It's really not suitable to be left out in the cold. Tian Jizi has already passed away. You should also take care of yourself. Qin Yining watched the people of the Heaven's Secret sect pack their luggage and secure the coffin. They didn't let any of Qin Yining's subordinates help at all. She couldn't help but sigh faintly and turn to walk back to the bedroom. How will I explain to Sir Mu in the future? Mu Jinghu's existence was to protect Tian Jizi. Mu Jinghu, who was originally supposed to protect Tian Jizi, left her side for Pang Zhao's safety. If Mu Jinghu knew about this, would he also fall into self-blame? Qin Yining didn't dare to imagine how a person like Mu Jinghu, who was so loyal to his promises, would feel. Princess Consort, don't let your imagination run wild. Things have already come to this point. There's no point in thinking too much. Princess Consort, you should take care of your own health. Moreover, Wang Ye's side has already issued a declaration of war. If the emperor comes for you, little miss, and little young master again, what should we do? Qin Yining returned to the room. She took off her cloak and leaned tiredly on the heated Kong bed by the window. She rested her head on the soft pillow and sighed deeply. I know all of this. I just feel guilty towards Tian Jizi. These are two different things. No matter what she did in the past, whether she wanted to kill me or not, she did die to save me this time. Bing Tang and Jian also felt bad. Like Qin Yining, there were people who valued friendship. Qin Yining had gone to Water Zhe country in a fit of anger because of Lei Feng's death. Now, Tian Jizi's death only made her hate Li Qiqian even more. Princess Consort, the people from the Tianji clan have set off. Jingzhi replied at the door. Qin Yining leaned to the side and opened the window. She saw the people from the Tianji clan driving the carriage slowly, leaving the country estate. Night was about to fall. The falling snow looked sparkling under the light. The pitch-black coffin was parked in the middle of the carriages. Looking at it made one feel lonely. Forget it. Let them be. Qin Yining sighed faintly and closed the window. She turned around and ordered Xie Yu to spread the obituary to the front lines. At the same time, the people in the capital were discussing the contents of Pang Zhao's proclamation. They knew more about this matter than the people elsewhere because they had seen with their own eyes the Prince Zhongshuan's consort locked up in a prison carriage and paraded through the streets in a sorry state in the wind and snow. So the emperor kidnapped the princess consort and Wang Ye's child? It's because of the change of commander at the last minute, right? In the end, it's Prince Zhongshuan's problem of resisting the imperial edict. If he hadn't been so obstinate and refused to give up power, Your Majesty wouldn't be like this. The person who spoke was collectively despised by the people around him. Everyone looked at him with a strange gaze. You're lacking a conscience when you say this. Don't forget, who was it that led the troops to the capital to resolve the siege? Who was it that paid for the disaster victims and the elite troops? When the emperor didn't let Wang Ye's troops enter the city and sent them away with a pole, he was already afraid of Wang Yi. Now that the Tatars have been driven out with great difficulty, Your Majesty is afraid that Prince Zhongshuan's contributions are too great and wants to change the commander at the last minute to let others take the fruits of his labor. Wang Yi wants to continue fighting the Tatars, so Your Majesty kidnaps Wang Ye's wife and child. Tell me, is this something a human would do? Brother, you have to be careful. Watch your words. Don't cause trouble for your family. I'm full and my family isn't hungry. What's there to be afraid of? In the streets, alleys, tea houses, and wine shops of the capital, there were people everywhere discussing and arguing. Some people said that the matter was caused by Pang Zhao's defiance of the imperial edict, but more people had sharp eyes. Everyone knew who had done more for the Daizhou dynasty in the Tate matter. Pang Zhao had always been very popular among the people. His image of being brave, good at fighting, patriotic, and caring for the people had long been deeply ingrained. The emperor was afraid of Pang Xiao. In the past few years, he had done more than one or two strange things. Even if people didn't talk about it, as long as one was a citizen of the capital, who wouldn't remember? In the past, Wang Yi performed meritorious deeds and was even beaten by the emperor with a plank in the palace. Didn't Wang Yi still go fight the Tatars when his injuries got better? Even if you want to slander Wang Yi, come up with a new way to slander him. We're not deaf or mute. The spies arranged by Li Qitian roamed the streets and alleys, recording the discussions of the people in the restaurants and tea houses. When they turned around, they reported back to Li Qitian with a worried and conflicted expression. They knew that if these words reached the emperor's ears, they would be scolded again. Sure enough, Li Qitian flipped over a small table on the spot, scattering the high-quality pastries and tea leaves all over the floor. Who dares to criticize us like this? We are the emperor, yet they dare to gossip behind our backs. Your Majesty, please calm down. The law cannot punish the majority. Right now, before they could finish speaking, Li Qitian roared angrily. The law cannot punish the majority. Then all of the people in the capital have thoughts of rebelling. This subject does not dare. The spies helplessly bowed their heads. Li Qitian clenched his fists and ground his teeth as he said, all of the land under the heavens belongs to the emperor. If we want someone to die, that person will die. This is our power as the emperor. That Qin clan is nothing but a woman. We can crush her to death as easily as crushing an ant. Even if we wanted her to die, why would it cause so many people to talk about it? Also, what did Pang Zhishi say in his public declaration of war? By avoiding the important and dwelling on the trivial, we have become an incapable ruler who brings disaster to the imperial court and harms the common people. Wasn't he the one who disrespected the emperor first? Do we have to cheer for him because he disrespected the emperor? Everyone pressed their foreheads to the ground, not daring to make a sound. Li Qitian said in a deep voice, the censorate has drawn up all the evidence of Pang Zhishi's crimes for us. Didn't Pang Zhishi refuse to admit his crimes? We want the people of the world to see how loyal and obedient the benevolent, righteous, and virtuous Prince Zhongshuan is. As you command, this servant will go immediately. Xiong Jinshui hurriedly bowed as if he had been granted amnesty and left a pass on the decree. The emperor, who was in charge of the capital, quarreled with the commander-in-chief, who was fighting the Tatars at the border. This had become an unprecedented show into Zhou's imperial court. Not only did the common people enjoy the show, but even the officials of the imperial court were so shocked that their jaws almost dropped. Your Majesty seems to hate Prince Zhongshuan to the bone. He can't wait to pin a crime on him and bring him back to be beheaded. Wang Yi was your Majesty's sworn brother and had made great contributions to the imperial court. In the end, it was very likely that he would end up being killed, let alone people like them. Therefore, during this period of time, the imperial court was jittery. The ministers all had their tails between their legs, and the entire capital was filled with a tense atmosphere. In the quietest residence in the capital, Yu Qiyin and Gu Shixiang sat opposite each other. Chapter 1160. Yu Qiyin lowered his head, a few strands of white hair hanging down. The deep creases between his eyebrows were very obvious even when he was not frowning. Where can we go if we leave the capital? Gu Shixiang coughed several times. He was over 90 years old and had long since lost his strength, so his voice was very weak when he spoke. Wang Yi, although you're still the Jinan Wang in the capital, you should know better than me whether or not this Jinan Wang has any real power and how thick the irony is. The reason why Li Qitian kept us alive was to show off his glorious achievement of wiping out Great Yin. The reason why we relied on him to survive was actually built on Li Qitian's trick. Now that the situation is changing, Li Qitian has repeatedly done stupid things, ruined his own reputation, and caused public opinion to lean towards Pang Xiao. In this old man's humble opinion, these two people will definitely fight in the future. If we continue to stay here in the future, Wang Yi will likely be affected. It is better to take advantage of the fact that Li Qitian has not noticed this place and quietly escape. In the future, the sky will be high and the land will be wide. The sky will be wide and the land will be wide. Yu Qiyin bitterly smiled and shook his head. The wrinkles at the corners of his eyes deepened because of his bitter smile. You mean, after we leave, we will be an ordinary farmer? If we want to live a peaceful life, Wang Ye's best choice is to be an ordinary farmer. In the future, we will buy a few mu of land, buy some real estate, and marry a wife. We will forget the past, forget our own origins, and be a person without a past, only a future. The room was silent. Yu Qian's eyes were hazy with tears, but in the end, he cried and laughed. I really can't accept this. I can't accept this. Ever since Imperial Father gave me that mess, everything I have done was because I was forced to do so. But why did all of this happen? Why? Why do I have to go through this kind of life? Gu Shixiang sighed and patted Yu Qian's trembling shoulder. This is fate. Wang Yi has enjoyed glory and wealth in his life, and also experienced the pain of the destruction of his country. If he can completely let go, it is not a bad thing to live a peaceful life. Yu Qiyan raised her head and looked at Gu Shixiang through her tears. Gu Shixiang nodded encouragingly at him. All right, we'll do as you say. Let's find a time to think of a way to escape. Gu Shixiang nodded in satisfaction. This old man has assisted 3 generations of emperors in his life. If I can protect you and keep you safe and away from disaster, I will not let down my ancestors. If it weren't for your help, I'm afraid I would have died long ago. Yu Qiyan shook his head and sighed. I used to have a lofty heart, but I didn't have the ability to do so. I just gave you trouble for no reason. Now that everything is past, I feel as if I've just woken up from a dream. This world had long belonged to someone else. And if I can live on like this, it can be considered good fortune. You're too serious. In the end, this old official is useless. Old teacher. Yu Qiyan and Gu Shixiang both felt extremely sad. They hugged each other and cried bitterly. The next day, the chief official of Jinan Wang's residence discovered that Yu Qiyan and Gu Shixiang were missing. He hurriedly reported the news to Li Qitian. When Li Qitian heard about it, he was silent for a moment. He casually ordered, "Go after them." Then he didn't say anything else. In his eyes, it didn't matter whether Yu Qiyan went or stayed, whether he lived or died. He kept such a useless emperor alive just to play with him. If he lost him, then he lost him. It wasn't a big deal to just think of it as losing a lapdog. What was important was the current war in Beijiang and Peng Zhao's attitude. In front of everyone, Li Qitian's anger was directly proportional to the anxiety in his heart. At this time, Peng Zhao was already a general who didn't obey military orders. He also had a large number of troops in his hands. Li Qitian himself had also been on the battlefield. He was most clear about the feelings of comrades who fought together on the battlefield. Objectively speaking, Peng Zhao was indeed a person who would easily attract people to follow him. First, Li Qitian was really worried that Peng Zhao on the front lines would respond to his call. Instead of dealing with Tayton, he would turn around and directly attack the capital. When that time came, what would he use to resist? Li Qitian knew that he didn't have the strength to fight against Peng Zhao. Right now, he could only pray that Tayton and Lu Hong were a bit stronger and that Peng Zhao would consume a bit more of their forces. He vaguely felt that his side could win this time. But if they could consume more of their forces, wouldn't Peng Zhao have to think twice before coming back to the capital to cause trouble? Qin Yining sent Tian Jizi's obituary directly to the military camp. When Mu Jinghu heard about it, he was so shocked that he couldn't control himself. It can't be. Master said that she would live to be almost 120 years old. How could she have died like this? Peng Zhao pursed his lips and patted Mu Jinghu's shoulder guiltily. I'm sorry, blockhead. I was too selfish to transfer you to my side. If I didn't bring you here and you focused on staying by your master's side, she wouldn't have died. Mu Jinghu shook his head, his eyes still lifeless. This matter has nothing to do with you. I came to protect you. Firstly, it was my idea, and secondly, it was also Master's idea. She wanted me to stay by your side, but I didn't expect. But Fairy Lady died to save Sister. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Pang Xiao didn't feel much about Tianjizi's death. But he and Mu Jinghu were close friends, and he knew that the purpose of Tianjizi's master accepting Mu Jinghu as his disciple was to protect Tianjizi. Now that Mu Jinghu was no longer by Tianjizi's side to protect him, and Tianjizi was shot while saving Qin Yining and died from her injuries, Pang Xiao felt very guilty. Mu Jinghu was stunned for 2 days before he gradually accepted the truth, because the people of Tianji sect and Xiu Feishan had sent him letters. One letter said that Tianjizi's body had been buried in Tianji sect, and the other letter was a consolation and confession. Xiu Feishan still often wrote letters to Mu Jinghu to express her feelings, and Mu Jinghu's heart had long been shaken. Now that he suddenly heard the news of Tianjizi's death, his heart was at its weakest. Xiu Feishan's letters made him feel better, and his rejection of Xiu Feishan was also not so strong. The war with the Taitan had progressed to its climax. At the beginning of the 3rd month, Pang Xiao and Jiziyu led the army to the border, forcing Si Qin and Lu Heng's troops to retreat to the desert. Lu Heng looked at the yellow sand in front of him, and his thoughts had already flown far away. That day when he and Qin Yining were kidnapped by Si Qin, they were forced to cross this desert. Thinking back to that day, the scene seemed to be right in front of him. At that time, Qin Yining respected him and trusted him. But now, he had become a traitor to the country, and Qin Yining's husband had become the vanguard to eliminate the traitor. In this lifetime, he might not be fated to meet Qin Yining. What are you thinking about? Si Qin came out of the tent and saw Lu Heng standing by the desert. Suspicion flashed in his eyes. Chapter 1161. Solution. Si Qin raised the corner of his lips and laughed mockingly. Ben Khan thought that Patriarch Lu would have an idea. Who would have thought that you would ask me about it at the last minute? Lu Heng smiled bitterly and shook his head. Khan, don't joke around. I'm just an official in Dezhou. In reality, the Lu family is just a merchant family, and I'm just a merchant. Think about it. How much knowledge can a merchant have? You don't need to belittle yourself. Si Qin crossed his arms and said mockingly, My Taitan warriors have been forced into a desperate situation. No matter how much money you have, you won't be able to transport the food and blankets here. Don't you want to contribute to this battle? Lu Heng smiled bitterly and sighed. He turned towards the deserted desert. He pointed to the west and then to the east. There's a city wall over there. If you walk straight, you'll reach the capital. This side, however, is a barren desert. In this season, the weather in the desert changes rapidly. We don't have anything to eat or drink. If we enter this desert, we'll die. If we don't move, Dezhou's troops will press on. We might still have a chance. If we retreat, we'll either be buried in the desert or retreat to the capital. Si Qin shook his head impatiently. Isn't the situation you're talking about obvious? Either retreat to the capital or stand here and fight to the death. What I want to ask is, if it were you, what would you choose? Lu Heng clenched his fists tightly with one hand behind his back. If it were me, I'd naturally choose to fight to the death. Although I'm not talented, I won't allow my troops to retreat and cause the people in the city to suffer. I couldn't tell that you were a righteous and benevolent person. Si Qin's words were somewhat mocking. He looked at Lu Heng's back with a particularly cold gaze. Sometimes I wonder if I've fallen into your trap by allying with you to attack Dezhou. A trap? Lu Heng's heart skipped a beat, but he maintained his composure. He slowly turned around and looked at Si Qin calmly. What kind of trap could I have set up? What's more, the Khan is a hero who is both wise and brave. If he really met with any trap, he would have seen through it with a single glance. Do you think he would have allowed me to run rampant until today? It's because I don't want you to be so arrogant. Si Qin smiled as he approached Lu Heng. His eagle-like eyes stared fixedly at Lu Heng, and the smile on his lips became even colder. You're really a good dog of Dezhou. Even though you're being hunted down by the Emperor, you still don't forget to trick us. You came to persuade Ben Khan that now is the best time to attack. Taking advantage of the continuous natural and man-made disasters in Dezhou, it's a good opportunity to take it down in one fell swoop. But now, Si Qin suddenly took a step forward forcing Lu Heng to take a step back. The natural and man-made disasters you speak of are completely useless. What kind of famine is this? That Prince Zhongshuan of yours actually has the ability to get food to solve the emergency. In the end, he was still able to get so many soldiers to oppose Ben Khan. What do you call this? Is this the good opportunity you speak of? Lu Heng's expression was calm, but his heart was already panicking. Now that the war was not going well, Pang Xiao and Jiziyu were coming at them menacingly. They were on the verge of defeat. If Tayton was defeated, Si Qin would indeed need an outlet to vent his anger. He and Si Qin originally only had a cooperative relationship, and there was not much trust between them. Now that Si Qin suspected him, it was not surprising. However, in the midst of defeat, Si Qin's suspicions, if he wanted to kill him, his subordinates might not be his match. Lu Heng's thoughts turned in the blink of an eye. He smiled slightly, cupped his hands, and said, "Khan, you're thinking too much. I've long been a sinner of the Dezhou dynasty, the target of the Emperor of Dezhou's pursuit. If I deceive Khan, what good will it do me?" Si Qin stared fixedly at Lu Heng's eyes, not concealing the suspicion in his eyes. For a moment, it was as if he did not know whether to believe him or not. Lu Heng continued, "Khan, don't worry. Me, my wife, and my servants, added together, we are just that few people. Now, we are all living in the Khan's camp. If the Khan thinks that I am lying, he can take my life at any time. Do you think that with my little strength, I have any room to resist?" With these words, Si Qin's expression eased a little. However, even with his ability, he was retreating step by step, as if he did not have the advantage of time, place, and people. This kind of decline was really hard to accept. Seeing that Si Qin's expression had eased, Lu Heng's suspended heart finally calmed down. He took a step forward and said in a low voice, "Khan, actually I was just thinking, could we secretly send people to Dezhou to ask for help? If we can catch them off guard and launch a pincer attack, we might have a chance to counterattack." Si Qin's eyes revealed a thoughtful expression. "Khan, if Dezhou's army presses forward, our warriors will be outnumbered. It will be difficult to deal with then." Dezhou currently had 480,000 soldiers. They had plundered the entire country for 200,000 elite soldiers, and now they had lost more than half of them. It wasn't that there had never been a case of a few winning against many, but if it really happened to him, it wouldn't be so easy. If he didn't do this, Si Qin couldn't think of any other way to deal with the situation. However, if he listened to Lu Heng's suggestion, Si Qin felt like a marionette being led by the nose by the person in front of him. "Ben Khan, think about it again." When Lu Heng heard this, he didn't try to persuade him any further. He cupped his hands and agreed. Si Qin calmly returned to his tent. Lu Heng also quickly returned to his own tent. When Bien Rehan saw that Lu Heng had returned, he hurriedly got up and rushed over. "You're finally back. Go and tell them I want to take a bath. They don't even have hot water here. How can I stand it if I don't take a bath?" Lu Heng's heart was filled with worries. This time, he had increased his guard against Si Qin. He was afraid that Si Qin wouldn't be able to defeat Pang Xiao and would take his anger out on him. Now that Bien Ruhan had come to stir things up, his heart was a mess. What kind of place is this? How can you do whatever you want? Bien Ruhan stomped his feet. What kind of place do you think this is? Weren't you the one who brought me here in the first place? I'm your wife. Whatever I want, you have to do your best to satisfy me. If you can't satisfy me, then it means that you're incompetent. Now you're saying that I'm wrong? I just want to take a bath. What's wrong with that? Take a bath, take a bath. Lu Hong grabbed Bien Ruhan by the neck and pushed her head out of the tent. When he opened the tent flap, Tayton's soldiers immediately followed. Under their strict surveillance, Bien Ruhan was so frightened that she couldn't speak. Just like that, Lu Hong grabbed her by the neck and let her out. After stumbling for a while, Lu Hong pushed her to the ground. Aya! Bien Ruhan fell to the ground. When she raised her head, what entered her sight was a boundless sea of sand. Chapter 1162. Bien Ruhan's mouth was agape, and he didn't know what to say. Lu Hong said in a low voice, "Do you see it? This is the environment you're living in now. The people in the military camp have to scrimp and save on water, but you want to take a bath? Bien Ruhan, are you born with a silver spoon in your mouth? Or are you born extraordinary? What makes you special compared to others? You eat well, live well, and use good things, but you don't do anything. Now you want to take a bath? Believe it or not, I'll throw you into the desert. Bien Ruhan trembled all over, not knowing whether it was from fear or from the cold. The weather in March was bitterly cold in the desert. Bien Ruhan had never experienced such hardship before. He was so frightened that he didn't dare to speak again. Lu Heng looked at Bien Ruhan and easily recalled the Qin Yining incident. They couldn't hide from their pursuers and had no choice but to walk into the desert. At the time, Qin Yining was like a heroine, not showing any fear. She was even calmer than a grown man. She was only in her teens at the time. She already had such a temperament. The arrogant Bien Ruhan today was like an immature child compared to the Qin Yining back then. Such a strong contrast made Lu Heng feel indignant. This marriage wasn't what he wanted, but in the end, it fell on his head. The woman he wanted was probably not fated to be with him in this lifetime. His family was destroyed, his life wasn't going well, and he was annoyed whenever he saw Bien Ruhan. In addition, he had used all his wealth to fund the Taitan War, and his life was in Si Qin's hands. Under these blows, Lu Heng's patience was almost completely worn out. Bien Ruhan. Lu Heng squatted down and grabbed Bien Ruhan's hair, forcing her to look at him. At this moment, he didn't care how many people were looking at him from behind. He no longer cared about maintaining his image as the head of the family. He gritted his teeth and moved closer to Bien Ruhan with a twisted expression. If you know what's good for you, you'd better not cause me any trouble. This is not the time for you to throw a tantrum. If you don't listen, then I can only send you out. Send me out? Bien Ruhan's eyes lit up with hope. She had had enough. This man didn't have her in his heart. He was always so fierce. In this military camp, she could only stay in the tent. She couldn't go out and have her own requests. As long as she made a request, she would end up like this. She really didn't know why she had to stay here and suffer. Seeing Bien Ruhan like this, Lu Heng's lips curled into a mocking smile. Yeah, I'll send you out. But now the army is pressing down on the border. The Taitan army is routed along the way. Dezhou's troops and horses are everywhere. To send you back to Dezhou is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. But here, pointing at the deserted desert behind him, Lu Heng's smile became even gentler. Here, no one will stop you. I'll bring you money and your favorite jewelry. I'll send you in, okay? The anticipation in Bien Ruhan's eyes froze and gradually turned into fear. She shook her head repeatedly, ignoring the fact that her hair was still in Lu Heng's hand. No, I won't make so many requests in the future. You don't? Are you scared? Lu Heng chuckled, his handsome face turning even paler. Bien Ruhan's eyes widened in fear. This Lu Heng was like a demon that could eat her alive at any time. She couldn't help but be afraid. Lu Heng slowly let go of Bien Ruhan's hand and pointed at the desert. Do you know that desert? Someone once took the initiative to walk through it. When the pursuers forced them to the point of no return, they would rather die in the desert than become a burden to others. Lu Heng's voice became exceptionally gentle, completely different from when he threatened Bien Ruhan. Although Lu Heng didn't name anyone, Bien Ruhan knew that Lu Heng was talking about Qin Yining. In your heart, she's so good. Even if she's thinking about another man, you still treasure her. Yes. Lu Heng turned around and sneered. Even if she stabs me with a knife, I'm willing to do it. As for you, don't even think about comparing yourself to her. But if you don't like me, why did you marry me? What a joke. If it wasn't for the Emperor's matchmaking, do you think I would have married you? Bien Ruhan had already thought about these answers. She just didn't expect that when the truth was revealed, it would be so despairing. When she thought about how Lu Heng treated her, she even felt that her marriage, her bitter struggle, her desperate struggle to win his favor, her struggle with Qin Yining, and her scheming against Lu Heng was all a joke. Bien Ruhan burst into tears. Lu Heng, you're not human. Don't cry. There's a lot of water here. If you cry too much, you'll run out of water. There won't be enough water for you to drink. Bien Ruhan was so angry that her whole body trembled. She covered her face and ran to the tent, crying. Lu Heng stood at the edge of the slope with his hands behind his back. He took a step back. There were still a few weeds under the snow. He took a step forward. The desert was completely deserted and unchanging. Whether he went forward or backward, he seemed to have reached a dead end. The war between the Tatars and the Great Zhou was getting more and more anxious. In the middle of the 4th month, the troops and horses led by Pang Xiao and Jiziyu had already surrounded the Tatars, completely cutting off the Tatars' capital city's reinforcements, cutting off the entire Tatar army's escape route. The Tatan people were naturally fierce and good at fighting. Now that they were forced into a dead end, they fought with the determination to die. They were so fierce that it made people gasp in amazement. The battlefield was filled with the smell of blood. Soldiers were fighting with their lives on the line. They spoke different languages, but the anger in their roars was the same. Pang Xiao and Jiziyu sat upright on their horses. They waved their swords and spears and charged into the enemy camp. Si Qin was wearing gray armor and a red-tasseled helmet. He held a Tatan curved sword in his hand. He gritted his teeth and led his men straight towards Pang Xiao. "Come, let me see the power of your Prince Zhongshuan, de Zhou's war god." Pang Xiao laughed coldly. He raised his sword and urged his horse forward, fighting with Si Qin. Jiziyu shook the reins and looked around. He could clear away any sneak attacks for Pang Xiao. In the Tatan camp, Lu Heng, Lu Wenru, and Bien Ruhan were already under the protection of their guards. They planned to take advantage of the chaos to escape. However, there were footprints of de Zhou's soldiers everywhere in the camp. This time, it was as if de Zhou's soldiers had directly stepped into their camp. The sounds of fighting and killing did not stop. The ground was littered with broken limbs. Bien Ruhan's eyes widened. Despair spread in her heart. Would she be able to leave this chaotic battlefield alive? "It's all your fault. It's all your fault," she cried as she was pulled away by her guards. She could not stop complaining. Chapter 1163. Let's go. This is our last chance. Lu Wenru urged the people beside him. The battle with de Zhou had been in a stalemate until now. The disparity in strength between the enemy and their side was too great. In addition, they had been surrounded for half a day and lacked food and water. Everyone had already reached the limit of their patience. Even Si Qin's final path of asking for help from de Zhou had been cut off. Lu Heng knew that the situation was hopeless. He no longer had the time to lament that the large amount of gold and silver he had invested had gone to waste. It was already hard enough to get out alive. De Zhou's soldiers and the Tatan were fighting to the death. They knew that if they didn't give it their all, only death would await them. As such, each of them exploded with their greatest potential. Even though they had fewer people than de Zhou, they were still able to maintain a delicate balance. Lu Heng saw this opportunity to escape precisely because of this. If de Zhou won, he really would have no hope. He also knew that the Tatan wouldn't be able to last much longer. As such, he had to act quickly. Right at this moment, in the desert to the west of the battlefield, the sound of a bugle horn suddenly rang out. Suddenly, a strong wind sprang up. The banner on Pang Xiao's back fluttered in the wind. The black banner with the word Pang embroidered on it fluttered in the wind. At this time, a similar troop had arrived in the sea of sand in the no man's land. The banner had the same word Pang flying above it. The sound of the bugle horn rang through the clouds. The sound of the drums became louder and louder, urging people to move faster. When the soldiers of de Zhou who had been caught in a fierce battle heard the sound of the war drums, their hearts trembled and their blood seemed to burn. When they saw that the group of troops in the desert had the large banner with the word Pang, everyone's hearts jumped with joy. They had surrounded the Tatars outside the no man's land. Now that they had people in the no man's land, the Tatars were like turtles in a jar. Victory was only a matter of time. Lu Heng looked at the troops in the desert that were getting closer and closer. His pupils constricted. Other people didn't know this, but he knew. Pang Zhao's people didn't have the time to go around the no man's land to ambush them. The only explanation was that there were people in the desert. He still hadn't forgotten about Shiyu. He had completely given up on Siye and, at the same time, developed an unprecedented jealousy and hatred. After he left Siye, he gradually embarked on a path that was completely different from Qin Yining. She was a large oasis located in the depths of the desert in the no-man's land. The original inhabitants of the oasis were people who lived in seclusion 100 years ago. The arrival of Qin Yining and Pang Xiao that day gave the people of Shiyu a living goddess and their new king. Who would have thought that Pang Xiao would be willing to use his own troops in Siye for the decisive battle between the Zhou and Taitan? Lu Heng urged the people around him, "Quick, quick, quick, let's go." However, the speed of the people in the desert was extremely fast. The person in the lead was riding a fast horse. She was dressed in dark green clothes, and her hair was tied up high. She had an exquisite figure and a beautiful face. She had a long sword in her left hand and a long braid in her right hand. She took the lead and rushed out of the crowd. Amidst the yellow sand of the desert, that person's face gradually became clearer. Lu Heng's pupils suddenly shrank. Wasn't that the female guard by Qin Huaiyuan's side? It was said that she had died with Qin Yining's family, Chao Yuqing. He might have mistaken her for someone else, but when he left Shiyu, he was lucky enough to have Chao Yuqing escort him. Chao Yuqing had even comforted him. No matter what, he would never mistake this person for someone else. Why would Chao Yuqing appear in the group? Could it be that the family Qin didn't die at all? Lu Heng lowered his head and ran. No matter how calm a person was, in a life-and-death situation, they couldn't care less about appearances or rules. His heart was filled with mixed feelings. He only felt that Pan and was worthy of being called Pan and's daughter. Their family had played such a big game of chess and deceived everyone. The location of the last stop might have been part of Pang Zhao's plan. They were just waiting for people from the desert to surround them. Kill. At Chao Yuqing's command, the small assault team formed by the spies behind her suddenly plunged into the Taitan's group like a sharp arrow. The soldiers who came after were dressed in wrought tan armor. Some were on horses, some were on camels, and there were also infantrymen. Every one of them held a weapon and advanced in an orderly manner under the command of their commander. The leader of these wrought tan armor soldiers was dressed in a black brocade robe. He wore a silk headscarf and held a feather fan. His beard fluttered in the wind, and he had a handsome face. It was Qin Huaiyuan. "Beat the drums," Qin Huaiyuan ordered. The shirtless men on the chariot received the order and beat the drums in unison. The momentum was so great that it was as if there was a surging tide. When Pang Xiao and Si Qin were locked in a fierce battle, Si Qin was already in a state of panic. Pang Xiao was shocked at first because he did not arrange for people to take a detour through the deserted desert. However, when he saw that the person who came was his father-in-law, Pang Xiao was instantly encouraged and his morale rose again. His admiration for his father-in-law was as high as a mountain. What kind of schemes did he have to be able to keep an eye on the movements of the imperial court and organize the troops of Siye to help him at the crucial moment? Pang Zhao's attacks became fiercer and fiercer. Si Qin was already no match for Pang Xiao. Now that the morale of his troops had collapsed, he could not hold on any longer. The two war horses crossed each other. Pang Xiao chopped off one of Si Qin's arms with one strike, causing him to fall off his horse in pain. Tang Xiu and Huzi, who had been waiting for a long time, immediately went forward and tied Si Qin up like a dumpling. Pang Xiao turned and charged into the enemy. He stood on his horse and raised his saber, chopping off the Taitan King flag. Jizu also had a tacit understanding with Pang Xiao. He also turned and chopped off the commander's flag, allowing the horse to trample on it. When the Taitan people saw that the king flag and commander's flag had fallen, they were immediately terrified and lost their composure. The people of Dezhou, whose morale was high, once again gained the upper hand. After a night and a day of fierce fighting, the battle finally came to an end. Pang Xiao urged his horse to gallop towards Qin Huaiyuan. When he got close, he jumped off his horse and saluted happily. "Father-in-law, why have you come?" Qin Huaiyuan got off his chariot and smiled at Pang Xiao. "Of course I can't sit by and do nothing about such a big matter. I only brought 1,000 of Sie's elite troops. I was originally worried that I would miss the crucial moment, but now it seems that I came at the right time. Father-in-law, you have been a great help. How are you feeling? Not bad. Is everyone in the family doing well? How are Brother Han and Brother Zhao? They are all well. You don't have to worry. They're used to living in Xia. What about Sister Yi? Sister Yi is doing well. She was injured a few days ago because of my negligence. She is now recuperating at Zhuangzi. Oh right, Sister Yi gave birth to a pair of twins. The brother is called Brother Xian, and the sister is called Sister Yin. They're already 7 months old. Chapter 1164. You brought Zhao Gu and Han Gu here. Pang Xiao was pleasantly surprised. His 2 sons were almost 4 years old, but they hadn't been with him and Qin Yining for long. Thinking of the days when his family was separated from each other, Pang Xiao hated Li Qitian to the core. Fortunately, Pan was his father-in-law. Pang Xiao was very relieved to leave his children in his care. Because the Chao family was the first to scout out the situation, I left the children in the care of some spies. They followed closely behind the troops, and were about half a day's journey behind us. Qin Huan turned around with his hands behind his back and looked at the battlefield that was nearing its end. He lowered his eyes and muttered, "Si Qin has been captured. The Tatans suffered heavy losses in this battle. I'm afraid they won't be able to invade the South for the next 100 years. That's right. Pang Xiao was in a good mood as he let out a long sigh. Now, the people can live a stable life. This is all thanks to you and Duke Ding. Qin Huayuan smiled and looked at Ji Ziyu, who was walking over quickly. Ji Ziyu's eyes were filled with surprise, but after some thought, he could roughly guess what had happened. He wasn't angry because Pang Xiao had concealed the truth from him. After all, the situation in the court was truly tense. His family was finally safe in that kind of jittery situation. If he could protect them, he would naturally do his best to protect them. He couldn't reveal the slightest secret. Ji Ziyu respectfully cupped his hands to Qin Huayuan. Qin Huayuan returned the greeting and smiled. Duke Ding, you're relieved that you've pacified the Tatan this time. Ji Ziyu used to command the Dragon Legion to guard the northern border all year round. He was an old enemy of the Tatan. Now that he could personally see Si Qin captured and the Tatan defeated, the joy in his heart couldn't be described with words. However, when he thought of Pang Zhao's situation, Ji Ziyu couldn't help but say, the situation in the imperial court is not optimistic. After defeating the Tatan, the emperor has no qualms about dealing with Pang Zhishi. Qin Huayuan was surprised that Ji Ziyu would say this, but he also saw that the brotherly love between Ji Ziyu and Pang Xiao was not fake. Qin Huayuan smiled in relief. It was Pang Zhao's good fortune to be able to make a friend like Ji Ziyu in this chaotic world. Don't worry, we'll think of a solution. Who was this person in front of them? This was Panin. If he said there was a way, then there was a way. Pang Xiao and Ji Ziyu nodded in unison. Qin Huayuan was pleased and patted Pang Zhao's shoulder. He didn't have a son, and Pang Xiao was his son-in-law. He treated Qin Yining very well, so he was no different from his own son. As long as Pang Xiao had any doubts, Qin Huayuan would naturally be happy to help. As they spoke, a one-sided advantage appeared on the battlefield. The great Zhou Empire's troops became more and more courageous as they fought. The Tatars had no way to retreat, even if they wanted to. Even their escape route to the desert was blocked by the people brought by Qin Huayuan. Surrounded by enemies, many people chose to give up resisting. Some even threw down their weapons and knelt with their hands raised high. Pang Xiao and Qin Huayuan exchanged glances and ordered, "Those who surrender to the Zhou will not be killed." The soldiers immediately spread the word. The Tatan had already lost their fighting spirit. Most of them threw down their weapons and knelt down to surrender. Ji Ziyu looked down for a moment and muttered, "We don't have enough food to feed so many people. It's not easy to keep these prisoners alive. It's not easy now. Keeping them alive is more useful than killing them." Qin Huayuan looked at Pang Xiao as if he was testing him. Pang Xiao thought for a moment and understood Qin Huayuan's intention. Keep them alive and negotiate with the Titan. Maybe we can get more benefits. For example, ask the Titan to cede territory and pay compensation. Jiziyu understood as well. Pang Xiao nodded. It's fine if they are willing to pay, but I think the Titan won't be able to pay in their current situation. Won't be able to pay. Jiziyu looked at Pang Xiao in confusion. It was as if he was asking what was the point of keeping them alive if they couldn't pay. Pang Xiao smiled. Yes, we can't pay them. These soldiers all have families and relatives. The Titan is only a small piece of land, so these soldiers and horses naturally come from all over the country. If the imperial court doesn't want to spend money and gives up on these soldiers who fought for the country, how would their families feel? Jiziyu finally understood. If that really happened, the Titan ruler would make the hearts of the people turn cold. Once the hearts of the people turned cold, it would be irreversible in a short period of time. The Titan's defeat and capture of the Khan were already a huge blow. The Titan would definitely be shaken. When the people were uneasy, something like this would happen. The internal strife of the Tartars would probably erupt. At that time, the Tartars, who had lost a lot of their strength, would not be able to recover in 200 years, let alone 100 years, before they could offend the great Zhou. Jiziyu could already see the Titan bowing down to the Zhou. He felt a surge of joy in his heart. There was another reason why Pang Xiao didn't say it out loud. These Titan prisoners of war would help him establish his prestige in the future. In the current situation, he would definitely have a battle with Li Qitian. It was hard to predict who would win and who would lose. If he kept these Titan prisoners of war, he would also have some advantage in public opinion in the future. Wang Yi. It was at this moment that Xiao Yuqing walked over with quick steps. She cupped her hands in greeting when she saw Pang Xiao. Pang Xiao hurriedly returned the greeting and smiled. And Xiao. Xiao Yuqing was very satisfied with the way Pang Xiao addressed her. She smiled and said, I caught some people in the crowd. As she spoke, a spy had already brought Lu Heng, his wife, and Lu Heng's entourage over. Lu Heng was in a sorry state. His clothes were torn all over. Bian Ruhan was in an even worse state. He didn't seem to be as high and mighty as before. Pang Xiao held a long knife and looked at the person in front of him with a gloomy expression. Lu Heng was pushed to the front. She exerted force and pushed the person to kneel on the ground. Looking up at Pang Xiao, Lu Heng's heart was filled with mixed feelings. He quickly lowered his head. Wang Yi, how should we deal with this person? Pang Xiao looked down at Lu Heng. He then looked at Si Qin, whose eyes were about to pop out of their sockets, and sighed. Bring them all back to the capital and let your majesty deal with them. Kill me if you have the ability. Pang Xiao's words made Lu Heng very agitated. The head of the Lu family, who had always been a gentleman with an elegant temperament, was now like a mad leopard, struggling on the muddy ground. Kill me. Kill you? Even if you are guilty of treason, the only person who can deal with you can only be the emperor. Since I have already captured you alive, I have no reason to take your life. Otherwise, do you think I would be willing to let you live? If it weren't for you, how could the battle have dragged on until now? If it weren't for you entering the pass for your own selfish reasons, how could there have been massacres in all the cities and towns along the way from the northern border to the capital? I won't kill you. I will only put you into a prison carriage and send you and your henchmen back to the capital safely. Lu Heng was suddenly shocked. He glared at Pang Xiao and said through gritted teeth, You are really vicious. Which of the cities and towns along the way from Tianmen Pass to the capital had not been plundered by the Titan? Massacres had occurred from time to time. To this day, a large portion of Pang Xiao's troops were survivors from these cities that had been plundered. It could be said that these people hated the Titan to the bone. As for him, the person who had led the Titan to the Zhou, they hated him even more. If Pang Xiao put him in a prison carriage and paraded him through the streets, it would be a torture more unbearable than death. Pang Xiao said in a low voice, This can't be considered vicious. I am just escorting you back to the capital. Everyone knew that the truly vicious thing would happen at the end. Li Qitian's method of dealing with Lu Heng would definitely not be gentle. Lu Heng's group and Si Qin were all locked up. The battle had come to an end. While the soldiers were cleaning up the battlefield and counting the casualties, Pang Xiao and Ji Ziyu had already invited Qin Huaiyuan and the other strategists to gather together and discuss what to do next. Tayton's treasury is already empty and they have no leader. It is not impossible to destroy this country in one go, Ji Ziyu said. When the others heard this, they couldn't help but feel their blood boil. The hatred between them and the Tayton had already accumulated. Now that they had found an opportunity to eliminate this hidden danger, it was naturally a joyous occasion. Qin Huaiyuan lowered his eyes and seemed to be in deep thought. Pang Xiao looked at Qin Huaiyuan questioningly. "Father-in-law, what do you think?" Qin Huaiyuan smiled. "I'm no longer a member of the imperial court, so I shouldn't say too much at this time. I'm just giving you a suggestion. The final decision is still up to you." Pang Xiao nodded. "Father-in-law, please speak." Qin Huaiyuan said, "I feel that it is easy to conquer Tayton, but have you all thought about what will happen afterwards? The Tayton people are naturally valiant and good at fighting, and they are the type of people who do not submit to control. Even if the Zhou's army suppresses the border and obtains an overwhelming victory, how can the Tayton people really submit? If we turn most of the Tayton into a province of the Zhou, then the imperial court will have to spend a lot of effort to control this place. In addition, the Tayton's geographical location has caused them to be poor. When the time comes, not only will the imperial court have to spend a lot of effort to control them, but they will also have to use a lot of money to feed the Tayton people. And if we don't conquer Tayton and use hostages to threaten them, we will be able to reap even more benefits. It will be a good way to make up for the losses caused by this war. When the time comes, the Tayton will pay tribute year after year, and they will become subjects every year. It will be a profitable business. In any case, Wang Yi has already beaten the Tayton to the point where they can't fight back for more than 100 years. Whether or not we destroy the Tayton doesn't seem to be that important anymore." Everyone nodded at Qin Huaiyuan's words. Ji Ziyu also agreed. "It is exactly as he said." Pang Xiao thought for a while and couldn't help but look at Qin Huaiyuan with a questioning gaze. Qin Huaiyuan only smiled. It was impossible to tell anything from that perfect smile. However, Pang Xiao knew that Qin Huaiyuan understood his gaze. The two of them once again had the same thoughts. In fact, although there were some reasons just now, it was still more useful for them to leave the Tayton alone. Returning to the capital this time was dangerous, and things were always unpredictable. If he couldn't defeat Li Qitian and had to return to the Tayton, which was separated from Xie by a desert, would become an important factor in expanding Xie's territory. Chapter 1165. Pang Xiao knew that he was not destined to live a completely ordinary life because there were too many people following him. Everything he did was even more out of his control. He had to consider the feelings and gains of more people. Li Qitian had already made up his mind to take his life. If he did not become strong and ascend to that position, then he would not be able to protect the people he wanted to protect. As for how much trouble it would bring him if he ascended to that position, Pang Xiao no longer cared. He was destined not to live a carefree life. As long as the people he cared about could be safe, as long as Qin Yining could accompany him, perhaps the rest of his life was still worth looking forward to. Perhaps Qin Huaiyuan had already considered this when he said those words. Otherwise, he would not have convinced everyone to agree not to destroy the Tayton and to preserve the country. Perhaps he was also afraid that he would fail in his Zhou and have to return to Shiyu. He was not satisfied with just staying in a corner, so he treated the Tayton as a future reserve. Everyone discussed for a while and decided that they would still fight if necessary, but there was no need to destroy the country. As for Si Qin, Lu Heng, and the others, Pang Xiao ordered people to prepare prison carriages and put them in them. They would be paraded through the streets and directly transported back to the capital. Let them enjoy the glory. Yes, Huzi agreed and went to give the orders with a smile. Lu Heng, Bian Rahan, Lu Wenru, and the others were taken out of the tent where they were imprisoned. As soon as they stepped out, they were greeted by a gust of cold wind that made everyone shiver. Bian Ruhan muttered in a low voice, "What are they trying to do? They can't torture people like this." If they want to kill or cut into pieces, they should at least give us a definite answer. Lu Heng's heart was like dead ashes. He was too lazy to argue with Bien Ruhan. He only lowered his head and looked at his hands that had turned purple either because they were tied up too tightly or because of the cold. He lowered his eyes and laughed self-mockingly. He was the head of family. He had glory and wealth. Now, he was going to be paraded through the streets? He was paraded through the streets, cursed by the people, and thrown filth at him. If persevering was the only way to survive, that would be fine. However, as soon as he arrived at the capital, what awaited him was still death. With Li Qiqian's vengeful nature, his crime of luring the Titan into the pass was already unforgivable. As for whether or not he had coveted the treasure, and whose hands it was in, there was no way to verify it now, so it was no longer important. Time couldn't be turned back. It couldn't be returned to the beginning. The sound of wheels creaking could be heard from afar. Huzi and his men were driving the prison wagons over. The height of the wooden cage was just right for a person to squat down or stand up straight. His hands and head were fixed to the roof of the prisoner carriage. He would be tortured like this on the way back to the capital, and then he would be killed after he returned to the capital. The future was dark, so what was there for him to hold on to? Come. Get in the car. Everyone gets one car. Don't force anyone. Huzi shouted. In the other tent, Si Qin was also chased out and forced onto the prison wagon. Following him were Si Qin's advisors and generals. When it was the Lu family's turn, everyone else was crying. Bien Ruhan was choked with sobs and sobs. I'm just a weak woman. I've never suffered before. Why do I have to take this carriage and suffer like this? Huzi heard this and laughed coldly. There's no such thing as unbearable suffering in this world. It's just that you're not as good as others. He knew that the princess consort had been paraded through the streets in the capital. At that time, the tenacity that Wang Fei had displayed had even moved them. When mentioning Wang Fei, who wouldn't give her a thumbs up in admiration? Compared to Qin Yining, Bien Ruhan was nothing in his eyes. Go, get in the carriage. Huzi and his men urged everyone. Lu Heng pursed his lips and followed Jinghu Wei slowly forward. His eyes looked at the prison wagon and then at the wooden wheels of the carriage. His eyes gradually changed from confusion to determination, and there was even a hint of ruthlessness in them. He gritted his teeth. Suddenly, his eyes widened and he charged forward. No one had expected Lu Heng to suddenly charge forward. Jinghu Wei hurriedly reached out to stop him, but it was too late. Lu Heng's head hit the sharp corner of the carriage. Blood immediately spurted out. Master, Lu Wenru shouted. He wanted to rush over in a panic. However, he had just been locked into the prison wagon and could only shout. Bien Ruhan and Lu Heng had been walking side by side. She didn't expect Lu Heng to suddenly kill himself. In this moment, she felt like the sky was falling and the earth was splitting. Everything in front of her was spinning. She was so disgusted that she vomited. Huzi paled and went forward to check. He saw Lu Heng lying on the ground. His body would occasionally twitch. His eyes were lifeless as he looked at the sky. He was exhaling more than he was inhaling. Someone quickly reported this to Pang Xiao. Pang Xiao immediately rushed over. He saw that the surroundings were silent. Only Lu Heng was lying in a pool of blood. He strode forward and knelt down next to him. Why did you do this? Lu Heng's eyes turned. He didn't respond to Pang Xiao's words. He lay on the cold ground and looked at the pale white sky. All the sounds around him gradually weakened. All the colors slowly disappeared. All that was left in his eyes was a patch of gray. All the glory and disgrace he had experienced in his life flashed past his eyes. There was a voice asking him if he had any regrets or if he had any regrets. The corners of Lu Heng's mouth twitched. He forced a smile, because he seemed to see Qin Yining's figure in the pale white sky. Of course he had regrets, but he had no regrets. His eyes slowly closed. Blood flowed from his mouth, nose, and eyes. Pang Xiao reached out to check his breathing. He sighed and stood up. He's already gone to the Lu residence. Prepare the coffin and send him back to the capital. Yes. Huzi's mood was a bit gloomy. He didn't do the job Wang Yi assigned to him well. He didn't keep an eye on Lu Heng and allowed him to kill himself. Lu Heng's subordinates, led by Lu Wenru, all began to cry. Bien Ruhan watched as Lu Heng was carried away. He screamed, "Come back, come back. What am I going to do if you die? You coward, you coward. You closed your eyes and kicked your legs. You didn't care about me anymore. You let me down. Lu Heng, you let me down. Come back to life. Tell me you forgot about that bitch before you die." Pang Xiao cast a sidelong glance at the hooting woman. It was her who made things difficult for his sister Yi. She even slandered her. Pang Xiao ordered in a low voice, "Gag her mouth. Since she's Mrs. Lu, she won't live in the Lu residence anymore. Let his wife take her place and parade her through the streets." Bien Ruhan screamed, "No, you can't do this to me. What right do you have? What right do I have?" Pang Xiao sneered. He pointed at Bien Ruhan and said in a low voice, "Because you're Mrs. Lu. You enjoy the advantages that come with being Mrs. Lu. But I'm just a weak woman. Why should I take her place and give it to you? What are you trying to do?" Pang Xiao smiled bitterly and shook his head. He looked at Bien Ruhan with eyes full of mockery. Chapter 1166. Bien Ruhan wailed loudly. Her shrill cries hurt the eardrums of those who were nearby. Why? Why? He never treated me with sincerity. Why should I bear his wrongs now that he's dead? You say that I took advantage of him, but when did I ever do that? How can you guys be so unreasonable? Pang Xiao couldn't be bothered to argue with the woman. She turned to leave. Huzi sneered mockingly. Tisk tsk. Where did this fool come from? The winner takes all. You're just a family member of a defeated general. How dare you talk to us about reason? As soon as he said this, the surrounding Jinghu Wei burst into laughter. Bien Ruhan was so angry that she trembled all over. Huzi still remembered how this woman had bullied the princess consort when she was insolent. He crossed his arms and glared at her. If you ask me, this Master Lu is really pitiful. His corpse hasn't even turned cold yet, and his widow is already thinking of betraying him. You say that you didn't take advantage of him. You used to live a life of luxury and had slaves and maids. Did all that money come from the wind? Without Master Lu's protection, someone like you would have died 800 times in the Titan barracks. It's not even a clean death, yet you're not grateful to him at all. In the blink of an eye, you want to betray him. What kind of family did you come from? In my opinion, even an old man who collects night incense is nobler than you. You, how dare you? Bien Ruhan was so angry that she stomped her feet. Huzi sneered. Do you still think you're the wife of Master Lu? Take her away. The Jinghu Wei rushed forward and quickly stuffed Bien Ruhan into the prison carriage. Bien Ruhan could only half squat in the prison carriage. Her neck and wrists were locked to the roof. She immediately cried for her parents and shouted things like, Prince Zhongshuan's troops are abusing female prisoners. However, she was in Dezhou's barracks with 480,000 soldiers. Even if she wanted to leave the barracks, she would have to shout for another 2 hours. In addition, other than the South Pacifying Army, the Dragon Stallion Army, the Tiger Army, and various other troops, most of the people in the barracks were citizens of the northern towns who came to join the army because of Pang Xiao. They had a deep-seated hatred toward the Tatars. They followed Pang Xiao to avenge their families, so they were very grateful toward Pang Xiao. When they heard a woman shouting outside, at first they were puzzled. But when they asked around, they found out that it was the wife of the master of the Lu family, and that the master of the Lu family was the traitor who had betrayed the country and led the Tatars into the Great Zhou. Everybody was furious. Bien Ruhan was an unknown woman who was lucky enough to enjoy the same treatment as the Tatan Khan, Sichin. Before the troops could leave the barracks, they threw mud all over her body. Her face was stiff in the cage, and she did not have the strength to shout. Sichin looked forward with a stiff expression. If he did not understand Dezhou's language, then so be it. However, he did. He was used to the life of being above everyone. Now that he was a prisoner, it was as if all the strength in his body had been used up. Thinking of the scene where he saw Lu Heng kill himself, Sichin shuddered. In his life, he had killed countless people. He could even kill the person who slept with him without hesitation. When he saw Inari stop breathing in despair, he could still feel some pleasure in his heart. But now, Lu Heng's blood splattered on the spot in front of the prisoner's cart made him feel fear in his heart. Perhaps Lu Heng's choice was correct. Such a smart person naturally chose the most straightforward and least painful way to die. Percent in the season of pomegranate flowers and rain, Qin Yining and his group finally went around the capital and arrived at the mountain range at the junction of Yuanzhou and Yan. Divine Design Valley should be nearby. Xiaoyu looked around and compared it with a map in his hand. He said, but Divine Design Valley has never welcomed outsiders, and it is surrounded by Chimenduanjia. If we want to enter the valley, we have to wait for the right time. What was the right time? Naturally, it was the disciples of Divine Design Valley who found them and allowed them to go. Qin Yining tightened his shoulders and nodded. He said, don't worry. This is the territory of Divine Design Sect. Even if they are mysterious, I believe that their eyes and ears are still very clear. Let's find a village nearby and live temporarily. I believe that we will meet people from Divine Design Valley who will come out to buy. Yes, everyone agreed and turned to find a place to live temporarily. Ji-yun said in a low voice, Princess wants to pay respects to Tian Jizi with good intentions. But I'm afraid that the people of Divine Design Sect will refuse us. Qin Yining smiled and said indifferently, it doesn't matter. Even if the people of Divine Design Sect don't allow us to pay respects to Tian Jizi, we still have people living in Divine Design Valley. Yes, Bing Tang's smile was full of expectation and excitement. I haven't seen little Kanji for a long time. I don't know how she is. Mu Gongzi's arrangement can't be wrong. Divine Design Valley won't treat her badly. Qin Yining sighed. I had no choice but to send Lin Xiaozhou to live in seclusion. Now the situation in the court is changing rapidly. I originally wanted to let little Kanji live a peaceful life, but now I have to trouble her. There's no other way. Bing Tang comforted him. Born in troubled times, it's not easy to live a peaceful life. What's more, little Kanji has that identity. Little Kanji is a sensible person and has been taught by Princess for many years. She treats Princess like her own sister. She will understand you. Qin Yining frowned slightly and smiled helplessly. Even if she doesn't understand, there's nothing I can do. But I will explain it to little Kanji in detail. Princess, there's a big village ahead. Jingzhe acted as a scout and reported back. Qin Yining said, then let's go. The group of people moved forward quickly and soon arrived at the village. There was a spacious street with many shops on both sides. The villagers all had smiles on their faces. Obviously, this place had completely walked out of the shadow of the famine and was full of vitality. However, the group of people walked all the way and found that such a big village didn't even have an inn. Xiaoyu smiled and said, if we didn't deliberately come here, there would be very few people in this isolated mountain. It doesn't matter. This old man will go and find out if we can find a place to stay for the night. It would be better if we can rent a courtyard to stay temporarily. Xiaoyu was born with a medium build and a kind face. He didn't appear to be shrewd, but was very easy to talk to and had a kind appearance. When coming to a strange place, it was easy for him to find out about something with such a kind face. Qin Yining and the others stood in the distance and waited. For this trip, Qin Yining had 4 spies by his side, Xiaoyu and 2 servant girls. Because it involved Tianji Valley and Lin Xiaozhou, he had specially arranged for Liao Zhibing and Meng Qin to be nearby to provide support. He didn't plan to let the people of Qin-Tian Alliance interfere unless it was necessary. Not long after, Xiaoyu came back with a smile and said, we came at the right time. The people of Tianji sect should be coming out of the valley to purchase food and daily necessities in the next 2 days. They don't have a courtyard to rent, but the people in this village aren't small. I've already heard that the people of Tianji sect enter the village from the east every time. It's not impossible for us to find a house in the east to receive them. Bing Tang couldn't help but praise. With Sir Xie taking action, nothing is difficult. That's right. Qin Yining nodded in agreement. It's all thanks to Sir Xie coming that our trip can be so smooth. Xiaoyu hurriedly waved her hand. Don't praise this old one. In reality, this old one is just running errands for nothing. This old one has always believed in Wang Fei's strategy. Qin Yining smiled and said, Sir Xie is sincere and good at making decisions. I rely on Sir a lot. Sir is very talented, so there's no need to belittle myself. Everyone agreed with Xie Yu's ability and character, so they all nodded. Xie Yu's face was red, but she was happy inside. The group went to the east side of the village. With Xie Yu taking the lead, they found a large residence that only the old couple lived in. Because they had given enough money, the old couple was very enthusiastic when receiving the guests. They specially cleared out a courtyard for Qin Yining's group to live in. Seeing that the leader of the group was a young madam who was as beautiful as a fairy, and the two servant girls beside her looked like fairies by Guanyin Bodhisattva's side, the old couple was shocked. Ba, this old one has opened her eyes to see such a fairy-like person. Bing Tang laughed. Granny, what's your surname? How should we address you? My husband's surname is Chui. Little girl, are you in your teens? Granny Chui asked with a smile. Bing Tang stuck out her tongue. I'm 22, how am I in my teens? 22? Granny Chui clicked her tongue. Looking at Bing Tang's white little round face and big eyes, she couldn't help but shake her head. You're a girl from a big family in the city. You eat well and use well. The 22 women in our village don't look like you. You're only 14 or 15. Bing Tang always had a delicate face. In the past, she looked like 12 or 13 when she was 14 or 15, but now she looked like 14 or 15 when she was in her 20s. That bastard Huzi always called her a potato spirit that never grew up. She was used to it. Bing Tang chatted with Granny Chui and borrowed the stove. Granny Chui said goodbye to Xie Yu, Jing Zhe, and the others with a simple and honest smile and returned to her courtyard. Qin Yining and Ji Yun returned to the house. Ji Yun put down the bundle and took out the original bedding in the house to dry. Qin Yining took off her shoulder and wanted to help, but Ji Yun hurriedly stopped her. Don't move. The injury on your shoulder hasn't healed yet. This time, you've lost a lot of vitality. That little girl Bing Tang was so anxious that she kept scolding you. Do you still dare to move? Careful, the scab has cracked. Bing Tang will be angry again. When Qin Yining thought of Bing Tang's nagging appearance, she found it funny. She said helplessly, If I had known, I would have brought Smile and Ziyuan here. They could have helped you. Although Smile and Ziyuan are good, their experience is limited. This time, it involves the Tianji Valley. It's right now to bring them. Besides, I'm not that tired. It's not troublesome to fold the quilt and make the bed. Do you think I can't do this kind of work with my martial arts skills? Chapter 1167. Qin Yining sat quietly on a simple wooden stool. Her eyes were full of smiles as she watched Ji Yin nimbly clean up the entire house. Not long after, Bing Tang returned with a tray and said with a smile, Madam, this servant has prepared some simple food. Please take some delicious medicine. Since she was staying in the Chui family, she naturally did not dare to address her with her identity. Qin Yining nodded with a smile. She got up and walked to the square table made of wooden planks. She sat down on a small square stool beside the table. You guys should eat some too. You must be tired from the journey. If you don't eat well, your body will easily collapse. Yes, madam. Don't worry. This servant has already prepared it. Mr. Xie and the others will eat it later. Qin Yining nodded. After eating the hot porridge, her entire body warmed up, making her sigh comfortably. Although it was already May, Qin Yining's body became very cold after her injury. This was a sign of weakness. Bing Tang spent all day thinking about how to nurse Qin Yining back to health. Even when she was out, she did not relax. After eating the porridge, Qin Yining put down the ceramic bowl and sighed, I wonder how Sister Yun and Brother Xian are doing. Madam, don't worry. The two wet nurses are very attentive to the children. Besides, Master Zhong is guarding a home. It will be fine. Qin Yining could not bring the children with her when she went out, so she naturally made thorough preparations. She even planned several routes to escape if they encountered danger. Of course I know, but I'm still worried. I've been with them all day long. I'm still not used to being separated suddenly. This was the same as when she was separated from Brother Zhao and Brother Han. Now, the two children were already more than 4 years old. Qin Yining was afraid that they would not recognize her as their mother when they saw her. However, the reality was like this. What did she do? Thinking of this, Qin Yining lowered her eyes, but the expression in her eyes became more and more determined. In order to not be separated from the children in the future, she had to help Pang Xiao ascend to that position. She finally saw through it. Sometimes, a person's fate was not in their own hands. Perhaps the heavens had already destined them to be extraordinary. Even if they had no ambition, they would still be forced to a dead-end step by step. The only way was to stand at the top. Qin Yining's disappointment and frustration only lasted for a moment. Right now, the Titan War was coming to an end. Everyone had been used. Li Qiqian would definitely kill Pang Xiao very soon. She had to succeed this time. Although she couldn't help Pang Xiao on the front line, Qin Yining knew what she should do to benefit Pang Xiao the most. Pang Xiao had never given up on his image, so she wanted to coat his image with a layer of golden light. He wanted Li Qiqian to understand that the common people were not tools that could be manipulated at will. At the critical moment, even ordinary people could become the key to his life. "Madam, you're tired. Take a rest." Jiyan took the cloak she always carried and spread it on the mattress. Then, she arranged the pillows they brought for Qin Yining. The Chui family's original mattress is very damp. You'll get sick if you sleep on it. "Madam, please make do with it. After the mattress is dried, this servant will make the bed." Qin Yining naturally didn't have any objections. Not to mention that there was no mattress. She had even slept on coal mud before. Back when she was in the Ministry of Justice's prison, no one cared whether she was cold or tired. Qin Yining lay down for a moment, then gradually fell asleep. However, she didn't fall asleep. She could still vaguely hear footsteps outside the window, as well as the sound of Bingtang and Ji Yun walking carefully. Jing Zhe and the others arranged their shifts. Someone was specifically guarding outside to prevent missing the members of the Tianji sect. The others took turns secretly protecting Qin Yining's safety. However, their luck was good. Xiaoyu had chosen the right people. The Chui family's elderly couple were kind and good people. They didn't harbor evil intentions. It was very convenient to live in the Chui family's courtyard. Bing Tang prepared soup and water for the elderly couple. Grandma Chui thanked them profusely. Later, she sent Bing Tang a lot of fresh vegetables. This place is secluded. There aren't many people from the outside. The local villagers are all pure and kind people. A little kindness can make people feel grateful from the bottom of their hearts. This kind of pure and kind usually only appears in the common people. Bing Tang sat on a small square stool and picked vegetables as he chatted with Ji Yun in a low voice. Ji Yun nodded and said with some emotion, "To be honest, there aren't many aristocrats who are as kind and righteous as the princess consort. Yes, it's said that birds of a feather flock together. I think the people around the princess consort, and those who are on good terms with the princess consort, are all people who value friendship and righteousness." "Little hussy, are you praising yourself?" "Who's praising myself? I'm just telling the truth." "You're praising yourself. Didn't you say that the people around the princess consort are all people who are on good terms with the princess consort?" Bing Tang heard this and couldn't help but laugh. He shook his head and gently pushed Ji Yun. They lived such a leisurely life for 3 days. On this day, it started to rain early in the morning. Therefore, except for Jing Zhe, who went outside to wait for the members of the Tianji sect, the others didn't leave the house. At the beginning of the day, there was a sudden sound of footsteps outside the courtyard. Xiao Shui, young man, and a Han, who were waiting at home, immediately gathered in front of Qin Yining's house. There was a creaking sound of firewood. Jing Zhe, who was walking in front, came back with 3 people. Through the courtyard walls that were separated by firewood, they could see that Jing Zhe brought back 2 men and a woman. The 2 men looked very familiar. One of them seemed to be called Fong Hailing. The woman looked unfamiliar. However, Ji Yun curiously stuck her head out and recognized her at first glance. This was Mai Dong, the maidservant that Qin Yining bought to serve Lian Xiaozhou. "Madam, the people from the Tianji sect are here." Ji Yun quickly went back to the house to report. "Mai Dong is here too." Qin Yining quickly got up and went out to welcome them. Fong Hailing and the others followed Jing Zhe to the courtyard. They were very surprised to see Qin Yining there. Fong Hailing pursed her lips and said, "Why are you here?" Qin Yining said, "I passed by here and wanted to pay my respects to Tianjizi. Also, I wanted to see my sister." Fong Hailing was somewhat resistant, and her face was very cold. Tianji Valley doesn't allow outsiders to enter. Thank you for your kindness, but you don't have to pay your respects. Qin Yining was surprised at first. Then, he lowered his long eyelashes in disappointment. It seemed that the people from the Tianji sect still held a grudge against Tianjizi's death and were unwilling to forgive her. Jiyan saw this and hurriedly came forward with a smile to mediate. "Young Master Fong, we came from afar just to burn a stick of incense in front of the fairy's coffin. We really have no evil intentions. Please make an exception." Chapter 1168. Qin Yining didn't expect to be rejected so harshly after coming to Tianji Valley. But thinking about it carefully, she could understand why Fong Hailing was so tough. After all, Tianjizi was seriously injured and died in order to save her. In the eyes of Tianji sect members, she was the culprit. How could they allow a culprit who killed Tianjizi to enter their Tianji Valley? Qin Yining didn't want to make the situation more awkward, so she didn't insist. "In that case, I won't make things difficult for you. I do want to see Miss Lian, who is staying in your sect. Please make an exception for me." Fong Hailing knew that Qin Yining was of noble status. Seeing her being so gentle and not putting on airs, she felt much better. Her tone became much gentler. "In that case, I'll order someone to send Miss Lian here." "Thank you." Qin Yining nodded. Fong Hailing didn't stay any longer. She turned around and left with her fellow sect members. Mai Dong was a little hesitant. She bowed to Qin Yining, but didn't know if she should go back. Qin Yining smiled. "Go back and tell your girl that I'm here, so she won't be worried for no reason." "Yes." Mai Dong bent her knees and bowed. She turned around and left with Fong Hailing. Qin Yining helplessly returned to the room and sat down. Ji Yun gave Qin Yining a cup of honey water and sighed. "I didn't expect Tianji sect members to be so tough. You can't blame them. From another point of view, if we had experienced that kind of thing, I'm afraid our attitude would be worse than theirs." Ji Yun pondered for a moment and nodded. Qin Yining didn't know when Fong Hailing would send Lin Xiaozhou out, so he could only wait. In the afternoon, there was a knock on the wooden door. Grandma Cui heard the noise and craned her neck to look outside. She couldn't help but be curious when she saw a young man with 3 beautiful girls. But when she thought of the fairy-like girl living in the other courtyard, she thought that she must be rich and noble. It was normal for her friends to be beautiful, so she didn't find it strange. She tactfully told the old man not to disturb the girl living in the other courtyard if there was nothing important. As soon as Qin Yining heard the sound of the door opening, he personally came out to welcome them. Fong Hailing sent her off and stepped aside to let her in. She saw that Lin Xiaozhou, who had grown a lot taller, was wearing a pea green cotton jacket and a light yellow horse skirt. Her long black hair was combed into 2 rings. She looked much more spirited than before. "Porridge," Qin Yining called out happily. Lin Xiaozhou's eyes were brimming with tears. She quickly ran over and hugged Qin Yining. "Sister, you came to see me." Qin Yining nodded profusely as tears streamed down her face. Yes, you've grown taller and more beautiful. I almost didn't dare to admit it." Lin Xiaozhou sobbed and wiped her face. She said angrily, "Sister, you're talking nonsense again. You only know how to praise me. How am I pretty?" When Lin Xiaozhou spoke, she was no longer as timid as before. She often stuttered. Although her voice wasn't loud now, it was no different from a normal person's. Qin Yining was both happy and sad. He hugged Lin Xiaozhou and cried bitterly. Ji Yun and Bing Tang, who were standing beside them, also shed tears. After a while, Lin Xiaozhou saw Bing Tang and hugged her again. "Sister Bing Tang, stupid girl, I thought you couldn't see me." Bing Tang rebuked her, but she couldn't help but cry. Ji Yun wiped the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief and said, "Let's not talk outside. Please come in and have a seat. Fong Hailing shook her head and refused. I'll just walk around outside. If you have any instructions, just let me know. After saying that, she cupped her hands and turned to leave the Chui residence. Lian Xiaozhou looked back at Fong Hailing's back. Her eyes were filled with worry, and her slightly furrowed brows showed her concern. Qin Yining's eyes lit up. He looked curiously at Fong Hailing, who was striding away, and then looked at Lian Xiaozhou. What's wrong? Are you on good terms with this young Master Fong? Qin Yining asked very directly. Lian Xiaozhou's face turned red when she heard that. She stomped her feet and said angrily, Sister, you're always talking nonsense. Qin Yining saw Lian Xiaozhou's reaction and understood something. He couldn't help but laugh. Bing Tang and Ji Yun also understood and smiled sweetly. Lian Xiaozhou's face turned even redder. Sister, what do you want to ask? If you don't ask, I am leaving. She turned to leave. Qin Yining hurriedly pulled her and held her arm as they entered the house. Jingzhou, Dahan, and the other three quickly went to guard the courtyard to prevent their conversation from being overheard. Lian Xiaozhou entered the house and held Qin Yining's hand as she asked, Sister, are you sick? You don't look well, and you've lost a lot of weight. Qin Yining smiled comfortingly. It's nothing. How have you been recently? Lian Xiaozhou nodded. I'm very good. My life in the mountains is very comfortable. The people of the Tianji sect are also very good to me and take care of me. Although my range of activities is limited, my food, clothes, and necessities are all the best. Qin Yining understood and said, It seems that the Tianji sect is very mysterious. Yes, when I left the valley, I was still blindfolded. Young Master Fong brought me out. Qin Yining heard this. The other party had just entered the Tianji Valley and failed. He also accepted it. After all, the Tianji Valley was such a mysterious place. Bing didn't allow people to enter casually. Even Bing Tang was no exception. The people of the Tianji sect naturally had to guard against outsiders. Remembering the route was not good for this mysterious sect. Lian Xiaozhou held Qin Yining's hand and shook it. She said in a timid voice, Sister, your complexion is really bad. Did something happen outside? Qin Yining held her slightly cold hand and patted it. It's okay. I was got a little injured a while ago. What do you mean by a little injured? Wang Fei's injury almost killed her. Bing Tang pulled a stool and sat beside Lian Xiaozhou. He told her everything that had happened in the past few days, including the changes in the court, Pang Xiao and Qin Yining's difficulties, and Qin Yining's birth of a pair of twins. She had just finished her confinement and was taken to the capital. Not only was she abused, she almost lost her life. Even little Kanji's heart skipped a beat when she heard this. She asked anxiously, Is Big Sister's injury better now? I didn't expect it to be so chaotic outside now. Is the Emperor more afraid of Wang Yi now? If Wang Yi doesn't fight, will he be targeted by the Emperor when he goes back? Qin Yining touched Lian Xiaozhou's head. The current situation is not optimistic. I didn't want to disturb your peaceful life, but after thinking about it, I still want to ask your advice on this matter. Lian Xiaozhou nodded and said seriously, Sister, if you have something to say, you can say it directly. I will do my best to do it. Chapter 1169. Qin Yining leaned closer to Lian Xiaozhou and said in a low voice, To tell you the truth, Your Majesty will definitely deal with Wang Yi in the future. At that time, not only him, but everyone related to him will be purged. Lian Xiaozhou shuddered when she heard this. She looked at Qin Yining in horror. The Emperor is a jealous person and good at scheming. He has repeatedly set up traps for people to jump into. It's really hard to agree with him. She was afraid of Wang Yi. Perhaps she was worried that Wang Yi would threaten his position in the future. But you also know that Wang Yi is not the kind of person who indulges in power and influence. He values relationships more. The Emperor has a vile heart. He will definitely get rid of people as soon as possible. I'm really worried. If we don't make preparations now, and the Emperor really takes action in the future, we can only sit and wait for death. Lian Xiaozhou nodded in agreement. She said seriously, Sister, What do you think we should do now? You asked me to come here. Is there something I can help you with? Looking at Lien Xiaozhou's trusting eyes, Qin Yining took her hand and said seriously, I do want to discuss this matter with you. I can guarantee that I won't hurt you, but I need you to cooperate with me and Wang Yi to do something. This matter may push you onto the stage, or it may put you at the heart of the storm. I can only promise you verbally that I will never put you in danger, and I won't let anyone force you to do something you don't want to do. But I don't have any evidence to prove that I'm not lying. Lien Xiaozhou couldn't help but purse her lips. She looked at Qin Yining's gentle and trusting eyes and nodded slowly. Sister, I believe you. Qin Yining didn't expect Lien Xiaozhou to nod so quickly. He hurriedly said, Don't blindly believe me. Think about your own wishes first. If you don't want to take the risk, I won't force you. I know Big Sister's character. All these years, only Big Sister has sincerely protected and helped me. If Big Sister wanted to harm me, there were so many opportunities in the past. I know you treat me like a sister and won't harm me. Lien Xiaozhou looked at Qin Yining seriously and said, Sister, just let me know if you need anything. If there's anything I can do to help, I'll definitely do it. Qin Yining looked at Lien Xiaozhou's eyes as she got into the car. He was so touched that tears fell from his eyes. Qin Yining had seen a lot of deception and deception. Even little Porge's complete trust in her moved Qin Yining. Actually, thinking about it carefully, how lucky was she? The people around her treated her wholeheartedly, sharing life and death with her. This was the most fortunate thing that she felt was worth bragging about in all these years. All right, Qin Yining nodded with a slightly trembling voice. He leaned close to Lien Xiaozhou and told her his plan. Lien Xiaozhou was silent for a moment when she heard this. Big Sister, will this really help you and Wang Yi? Qin Yining nodded with certainty. Elder Sister, I will definitely cooperate with Elder Sister. However, will this matter be discovered? If it's discovered, it won't be good for Wang Yi to be slandered. I don't think so. I'll plan carefully when the time comes. That's good. Lien Xiaozhou lowered her head. After a moment, she looked up again and said, Big Sister, as long as it can help you and Wang Yi, I have no objections to this at all. I'm just a little worried. Qin Yining didn't say anything immediately. He gave Lien Xiaozhou time to think about it. After a while, Lien Xiaozong Fong said, Since the prince has set his heart on that position, my existence may be feared in the future. I'm afraid that in the future, it won't be easy for Wang Yi to protect me. That's indeed possible. After all, even if you're above everyone else, there are still many things that you can't control. But I definitely won't allow anyone to bully you. Lien Xiaozhou said, I know that Big Sister is someone who means what she says. Since Big Sister thinks that this will be a great help to Wang Yi, then let's do it. Qin Yining stroked Lien Xiaozhou's long hair. I know that this is the result of your careful consideration. Right now, there's chaos outside. Actually, even if we follow this plan, we might not succeed in the end. But this plan is better. Lien Xiaozhou comforted Qin Yining by patting him on the shoulder. Big Sister, let's do it this way. No more regrets? Lien Xiaozhou chuckled. Since I've already decided, why would I regret it? The two of them looked at each other for a moment and couldn't help but laugh. Qin Yining tapped Lien Xiaozhou's nose and said seriously, I thank you on behalf of Wang Yi. If it weren't for Big Sister, I might have died long ago. Big Sister saved my life and protected me afterward. Big Sister treats me like a sister, but I can't do anything to help Big Sister. Now that there's a chance, and it's not like you want me to do anything, you just want me to cooperate. You won't hurt me or make things difficult for me. So what's so difficult about this? So I really can't accept Big Sister's thanks. Qin Yining said, This is different. These are two different things. You didn't have to participate in this matter and didn't have to take the risk. You know very well that living in seclusion can bring you more stability and comfort. Once you're exposed, your future will be in trouble. This is also why I didn't dare to use this plan when I first thought of it. Big Sister, you're worrying too much. How can things get to that point? Big Sister, you don't have to hesitate. I think this matter is feasible. Qin Yining nodded and looked gratefully at Lien Xiaozhou. After a while, he said, "Don't worry, I'll protect you." Lien Xiaozhou nodded heavily. In Bingtang and Ji Yun had been standing at the side. Seeing that Lien Xiaozhou and Qin Yining had reached an agreement and things were going so smoothly, the two of them were very happy. Bing Tang smiled and said, "In that case, you can continue to follow Wang Fei in the future. We sisters can also stay together for a long time." "Yes." Ji Yun nodded repeatedly. "Wang Fei misses you when you're not by her side." Even little Porridge nodded happily. However, as she smiled, her smile gradually faded. "If I follow Big Sister, I'll have to leave Tianji Valley." "Yes." Qin Yining nodded. "You'll have to follow me for a while." Thinking of the way Lien Xiaozhou looked at Fong Hailing's back, Qin Yining suddenly seemed to understand something. "Little Kanji, you and young Master Fong." Lien Xiaozhou jumped up as if she was scalded and waved her hand repeatedly. "No, no, no, Big Sister, don't talk nonsense. I'm just grateful to young Master Fong. During this period of time, I've been living in Tianji sect, but young Master Fong often came to the valley outside the sect regularly to deliver food to me. Even my Dong and Banxia are grateful to young Master Fong. Young Master Fong really helped me a lot in daily trifles." It was obvious that they had been together for a long time. Chapter 1170. Lien Xiaozhou was of marriageable age, and Qin Yining had always kept her affairs in mind. Ji Yun and Bing Tang both had people they liked. It was rare for Lien Xiaozhou to find someone she liked. However, Qin Yining was very afraid that his decision would delay Lien Xiaozhou's happiness. But thinking about it carefully, this was not a difficult problem. If Fong Hailing was interested in Lien Xiaozhou, she would naturally try to find a way to meet him. She would not stop them from meeting. She was also an experienced person. She still remembered how Hang Xiao had taken the initiative to approach her. When Qin Yining thought about it, he was no longer so hesitant. Since he had made his decision, Qin Yining sent someone to find Fong Hailing. "Young Master Fong, I have already discussed it with Xiaozhou. She intends to travel with me when we return this time." He discreetly observed Fong Hailing's expression. "Young Master Fong, thank you for taking care of her these days." Fong Hailing was obviously stunned. She looked at Lien Xiaozhou in confusion. However, when he saw that Lien Xiaozhou did not look reluctant at all, and that Qin Yining was very certain, he pursed his lips and did not say anything. Qin Yining took in his expression and couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. It seemed that this was not Lien Xiaozhou's wishful thinking. Fong Hailing treated Lien Xiaozhou with sincerity. Qin Yining softened his tone and said, "Young Master Fong, thank you for taking care of her these days." Fong Hailing stiffly grunted in acknowledgement. Then, she put on her usual cold expression and showed some hostility to Qin Yining. She said distantly, "You are welcome." This was originally young Master Mu's order. In other words, he was just helping her. If she wanted to thank him, she should ask Qin Yining to take care of Mu Jinghu. She did not need to care about him. Lien Xiaozhou looked at Fong Hailing and slowly lowered her head. Then, she held Qin Yining's hand and asked, "Sister, when are we leaving?" Fong Hailing immediately glanced at Qin Yining when she heard the words Sister Daoist. Qin Yining saw his expression and concealed the smile on his lips without leaving a trace. He answered Lien Xiaozhou seriously. "The situation in the capital is urgent. We don't have much time to waste. Let's rest today and set off tomorrow." Lien Xiaozhou nodded and turned to look at Fong Hailing. "Young Master Fong, I'll have to trouble you to take me back to Tianji Valley later so that I can pack up." Fong Hailing, who had been looking down at her Lien Xiaozhou, was silent for a moment before she hummed softly in agreement. Lien Xiaozhou gently bit her lower lip and returned to her usual self. She turned around and looked at Qin Yining questioningly. Qin Yining saw their expressions and understood what was going on. She smiled encouragingly at Lien Xiaozhou and said, "Go, I'll wait for you here." "Yes." Lien Xiaozhou gave Qin Yining a bright smile, which made Fong Hailing's eyebrows twitch. After Bing Tang left with Fong Hailing, Jian whispered, "There seems to be something going on between the two of them." Bing Tang said, "That one surnamed Fong looks like a difficult person to get along with. Maybe he's tough and wants to bully our little Kanji. It's good that they're separated this time. At least little Kanji won't be wronged." Wronged? Qin Yining shook her head and smiled. "Forget it. Let's get ready. We should set off for the capital tomorrow." The two maidservants stopped chatting when they heard this. One went to take care of the house, while the other went out to inform Xie Yu and the others. When Lien Xiaozhou returned, Mai Dong and Banxia each carried a large cloth bundle. However, Fong Hailing was not with them. Qin Yining's lips moved, but she did not ask anything. Bing Tang was straightforward and said, "Little Kanji, where's that young Master Fong?" Lien Xiaozhou was a little disappointed. She forced herself to say, "He went back after sending me out of the valley. He said that he didn't want to get involved in worldly affairs. He told me to take care of myself." Bing Tang was so angry that her eyes widened. "He actually said that? Who does he think he is? He even told you to take care of yourself. Does he really think that he's a disciple of some immortal sect, returning to the secular world? Is he about to become an immortal?" Lien Xiaozhou was shocked by Bing Tang's temper. She said timidly, "Sister, don't be angry. He's just like that." When Bing Tang saw Lien Xiaozhou like this, she could not bear to lose her temper. However, she thought that it was good for this person to stay in Tianji Valley. Otherwise, her little Kanji would always be thinking about him. It was better for them to be separated. The people she despised the most were those arrogant people who boasted about being part of famous sections. Qin Yining looked at Lien Xiaozhou and Bing Tang talking. Finally, she smiled silently. She remembered the scene when she first met Lien Xiaozhou. She was already 9 years old. However, she still looked like a 6 or 7-year-old child. She lived alone in the mountains for a long time without anyone to accompany her, take care of her, and teach her. It was a problem for her to even say a few words. Now that 7 years had passed, the child had grown into a young lady. Qin Yining had mixed feelings in her heart. It was as if she had seen her younger sister grow up with her own eyes. That kind of feeling was indescribable. It was a feeling of regret and satisfaction. Lien Xiaozhou and Bing Tang were bickering when they realized that Qin Yining had been looking at them with a smile. They could not continue arguing and immediately laughed. Qin Yining patted their shoulders and said with a smile, "Okay, don't think so much. Fate is determined by the heavens. If it's really yours, even if two people are separated by thousands of mountains and rivers and 2 countries, they will still come together in the end. However, if it's not yours, even if they are close to each other, they will still hate each other. Just like Big Sister and Wang Yi, Bing Tang Big Sister and Bodyguard Deng," Lien Xiaozhou said seriously. Bing Tang's face immediately turned red. She chased after Lien Xiaozhou and said, "Good, you bad girl. Now you know how to make fun of people. See if I don't tear your mouth when I catch you." Good Big Sister, please spare me." Lien Xiaozhou ran around the house and chuckled as she was chased. She was out of breath as she begged for mercy. The girl's crisp and cheerful laughter spread far and wide, making the people who heard it feel a lot better. The next day, the group of people said goodbye to the old couple from the Chui family and rushed to the capital in the fragrance of May. Percent news of Pang Xiao and Ji Ziyu's army resisting the Taitan continued to spread to the capital. Later on, the Taitan Khan, Si Qin, was captured alive by Pang Xiao and would be escorted back to the capital along with important Taitan generals and officials. When the people heard the news, they were all overjoyed. Before Dezhou, during the time of Beiji, they were often bullied by the Taitan people. At that time, the imperial court was weak and easily bullied. After being provoked by the Taitan people several times, they had to negotiate with a smile. In the end, they had to give them money to settle the matter. To outsiders, they had to put on an appearance of not caring about the barbarians. Chapter 1171. Now, in the streets and alleys of the capital, people were discussing Dezhou's victory in this battle. Some people praised Ji Ziyu for his bravery, while others praised Pang Xiao for his godly ability to command troops. He deserved to be called the god of war Wang Yi. Even the soldiers who came to save the emperor, as well as the commoners who volunteered to join the army, were all praised as heroes. However, no one praised Li Qiqian. Li Qiqian ordered people to inquire about the news for several days, but they all received the same answer. The depression in his heart grew heavier and heavier. The Empress Dowager fell ill because of the loss of her beloved daughter. Even now, whenever she saw Li Qiqian, she would cry and clamor for him to capture Qin Yining and avenge Li Helan. Li Qiqian was extremely agitated. Whenever he saw the Empress Dowager, he would feel annoyed. These days, if he could avoid going to Xian Palace, he would do his best to avoid her. However, when he refused to go, the Empress Dowager would come to him herself. She didn't wait for the eunuchs to pass on the message and swaggered into the imperial study. Emperor, the Empress Dowager's hair was disheveled, and her dark blue robe was full of wrinkles. Her eyes were red and swollen, and her lips were chapped. She strode to Li Qiqian's table and slammed her hands, which were wearing a ruby ring and a jade thumb ring, on the table. You must avenge your sister. Go capture the Qin clan. Capture the Qin clan and cut them into pieces. Li Qiqian looked down at the memorial and said indifferently, "The Empress Dowager is too worried and overworked herself. She needs to recuperate. How could she work herself out at this time? Come, send the Empress Dowager back to her palace to rest." Xiong Jinshui almost cried on the spot, but he couldn't do anything about it. He didn't dare to disobey the imperial decree and could only accept his fate. Empress Dowager. Xiong Jinshui bowed and walked to the Empress Dowager. As soon as he opened his mouth to call her, the Empress Dowager gave him a hard slap. "Scram, did I just speak to you?" Xiong Jinshui spun in a circle from the slap and immediately rolled away. Li Qiqian finally raised his head impatiently. He looked at the Empress Dowager and asked in a deep voice, "Imperial Mother, what do you want?" "Imperial Mother, Imperial Mother." Ha ha ha. The Empress Dowager laughed hysterically with tears in her eyes. "What do you think I should do? What do you think I should do? Lana is your younger sister. She's your biological sister. She was killed by someone, and now that her body is not even cold, you don't think of a way to avenge her. What kind of brother are you?" Li Qiqian slammed the booklet down impatiently, stood up with both hands on the edge of the table, and glared at the Empress Dowager. "Mother, do you think I'm very idle?" The Empress Dowager gritted her teeth and said, "What do you mean by this?" Our family rose from an ordinary family to where we are today, and Aijia has never asked you for anything. When was there a time when you didn't glare at Aijia, and Aijia didn't object? But was this a small matter? Your biological sister was killed by someone. My biological daughter was killed by someone. Aijia is only asking you to avenge your younger sister. What's wrong with that? You're thinking of the problem too simply. Li Qiqian rubbed the space between his eyebrows and suppressed his anger. I have so many things to deal with every day, and I have to face the ministers in the court with their own thoughts at all times, as well as the traitors who may turn around and rebel. You are Aijia's biological mother, and you don't know how much you care about Aijia and how considerate you are. Instead, you come to force Aijia everywhere. Aijia has worked hard enough, and there are enough things in Aijia's heart. Could it be that you will only be satisfied if Aijia is forced to do something bad? Who wants you to do something all day long? What? Your empress and your concubine's family matters. They only need a few words from you to agree. Why does your mother have to come and beg you again and again? You've changed. You've completely changed. You're no longer that filial son. Unfilial? Li Qiqian walked around the table in large strides and went straight to the Empress Dowager. He stared at her condescendingly. You say Aijia is unfilial? Do you know how the previous emperors treated their relatives who tried to rebel? The Empress Dowager was frightened by Li Qiqian's imposing manner for a moment. What her mother's family had done was indeed not honorable enough, and this had become the most common topic for Li Qiqian to use against her. The Empress Dowager's aggrieved tears fell down. Could it be that Aijia was the one who did those things? You always hold on to this matter and refuse to let it go. Could it be that you've forgotten who gave birth to you? You ungrateful ingrate. Yes, you are Aijia's mother. But you have to know, based on what those people in your family did, Aijia's punishment would be light if Aijia exterminated their entire family. If it weren't for the fact that you are Aijia's mother, do you think they would be able to live freely until now? You to give birth to Aijia. Could it be that Aijia is not filial to you? What do you want that Aijia won't satisfy? Right now, Aijia is unable to sleep at night because of the treacherous official's possible rebellion. As Aijia's mother, have you ever cared about Aijia? Have you ever helped Aijia with Aijia's worries? As Aijia's mother, have you never thought about treating your son well? Now you're saying these things to Aijia with such a resentful tone. Do you think Aijia won't do anything to you? You're threatening Aijia. If you're not afraid of bearing the infamy of murdering your own mother, then come and kill me. The Son of Heaven governs the world with benevolence and filial piety. You can't govern my ass. Li Qiqian tightly clenched his teeth, and the lines of his jawbone were even more pronounced than usual. Right at this moment, the sound of hurried footsteps suddenly came from outside the shop. Someone quickly ran over and pushed open the door without any notice. Your Majesty is in trouble. Li Qiqian calmly looked towards the door. The person who had come was actually one of his calmest secret spies. For such a calm person to be so anxious, and for a secret spy to run over in such a flamboyant manner, Li Qiqian's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that Pang Zhishi had brought people over to attack? Li Qiqian's face instantly darkened. Even the Empress Dowager, who was originally crying, was scared into silence. She looked at the secret spy in confusion. What's the matter, report? The secret spy panted and pointed in the direction of the city. In the city, suddenly, someone posted a notice. It's a letter addressed to your Majesty. What? A letter addressed to Aijia? Who has the guts to post it in the city? Replying to your Majesty, the letter was signed by the prince of the previous dynasty, Zhou. Li Qiqian suddenly widened his eyes and was tongue-tied for a moment. The prince of the previous dynasty, Zhou? Didn't he already kill all the princes and princesses of Beiji? He didn't even let off the clan relatives. How could there be another one now? Impossible. Back then, Aijia had already cleaned up the cruel remnants of the Zhou family from the previous dynasty. How could there be another prince of the previous dynasty? Anyone who dares to write a letter to Aijia and even dares to publicize it, they must have eaten a bear's heart and a leopard's guts. Go, investigate carefully and catch that madman who pretended to be a prince of the previous dynasty. The secret spy knelt on the ground, his legs beginning to tremble. Your Majesty, on that letter, there's the previous dynasty's imperial seal. Li Qiqian was tongue-tied. He took 2 steps back and almost sat down on the desk. Impossible, impossible. Chapter 1172. Where is the imperial jade seal of Northern Ji all these years? Who was it that hid it and took it out when the great Zhou was at its most unstable? Could it be that it was used to slap him in the face? It had only been 10 years since the great Zhou dynasty destroyed the Northern Ji kingdom. In these 10 years, not all the original subjects of the Northern Ji kingdom had died. The reappearance of the imperial jade seal had great appeal to the original subjects of the Northern Ji kingdom. Moreover, the person who took out the imperial jade seal was a prince of the previous dynasty. Whether the prince was real or not, whether the imperial jade seal was carved out of radish or not, now that the announcement was posted outside, it had completely shaken the hearts of the people and the subjects. In the imperial court, there were originally 3 groups: the aristocratic families, the remnants of Northern Ji, and the surrendered subjects of Dian. His old subordinates and die-hard loyalists only made up a very small portion. Sadly, the biggest reason why his supporters could join the other 3 groups was because of Pang Xiao. Li Qiqian was really panicking at this time. Now that Pang Xiao had become a strong enemy and could lead troops to rebel against him at any time, who could help him suppress the old subjects of the Northern Ji dynasty. The Northern Ji dynasty was, after all, a dynasty that had been passed down for more than 100 years. Those old officials and aristocratic families were closely connected, and their relationships were complicated. They were like a deep-rooted tree, its roots intertwined. Once the remnants of Northern Ji and the aristocratic families were shaken by the appearance of the imperial jade seal, he did not know how to stabilize the situation. Li Qiqian thought for a long time, but it was only for a moment. He did not have time to quarrel with the Empress Dowager. He turned and ordered Xiong Jinshui to prepare a carriage. "Hurry up, I want to take a look." "Yes, Your Majesty." Xiong Jinshui turned and ran out. He ran so fast that he fell flat on his face and almost knocked out one of his front teeth. However, he did not dare to cry out in pain or delay. He got up and continued to run out. The imperial study was filled with a murderous aura. Even the Empress Dowager's anger was scared away. She knew her son. Li Qiqian might be lenient with her on similar matters, but when it came to the country and the throne, he would not be merciful. She originally wanted to vent her emotions. Besides, crying, making a scene, and threatening to hang herself was a good method that had been tried and tested time and time again. It was a good method to control Li Qiqian. Now that the court was in chaos and the time was not right, the Empress Dowager no longer insisted. She turned around and quietly left. Li Qiqian had completely forgotten about the Empress Dowager. He was anxiously waiting for Xiong Jinshui. The spy was still kneeling on the ground, carefully observing Li Qiqian's expression. He did not dare to speak until he saw the Emperor's face. "Your Majesty," he dared to say, "Since that's the case, why didn't you open the letter back then?" "Your Majesty, please calm down. It's because there were too many things to do at that time." So the announcement was surrounded by 3 layers of people inside and outside. Our spy was only one person, so he was really alone. When he just came in to announce the announcement, he was beaten with a stick. He was dazed for a while before he had the strength to come back and report. So, because of one person's incompetence, the content that slandered me was left on the notice for everyone to see. The spy lowered his head. His face was full of worry. He knew Li Qiqian's temperament. He had tried his best to cater to him, but the Emperor's prestige was unpredictable. It was really hard to serve him. We were afraid that people would think that we were guilty, so we didn't rush to take it down. Besides, the capital is such a big place, and there's only one place where the letter is pasted. If we take down this place, what will we do if other places pop up one after another? This kind of thing is simply impossible to guard against. That's why we left this place, in case the other party wants to play a trick on us and paste more. Li Qiqian took a deep breath. He could only accept the reality in front of him. He ordered the inner servant, "Go and urge Xiong Jinshui." Did they call the carriage at the last minute? How could they be so slow? Xiong Jinshui ran back breathlessly. He said in a deep voice, "Your Majesty, everything is ready." Li Qiqian was about to walk out, but he was stopped by Xiong Jinshui. "Your Majesty, you should change your clothes first." Li Qiqian looked down and found that the clothes he was wearing today had the image of a dragon's prestige. If he went out wearing this, it would be the same as sticking notes saying, "I am the son of heaven," all over his forehead. Li Qiqian could only rush back and tell the inner servant to help him change his clothes. When Li Qiqian was properly dressed, he carefully checked his clothes. After confirming that there were no omissions, he led his trusted aides into the city. Soon, the group arrived at the place where the notice was posted. The commoners were gathered in a circle, curiously looking at the contents of the notice. Li Qiqian only glanced at it before fiercely pushing aside Xiong Jinshui, who was sitting in front of the carriage door, and jumping out. He quickly walked into the crowd. He walked in such a hurry that he pushed aside the commoners in front of him, causing them to complain in dissatisfaction. "What kind of person is this? He's courting death. What are you pushing for? We're in a hurry to see your obituary." Xiong Jinshui almost knelt down when he heard such disgraceful words. However, Li Qiqian's gaze was already fixed on the notice. He first looked at the imperial jade seal to make sure it was real, then carefully looked at the contents of the notice. When he read it, Li Qiqian was so angry that smoke almost came out of his 7 orifices. Inside, he listed in detail all of his major and minor affairs since the founding of the dynasty. He listed when he was suspicious of the meritorious officials, when he ordered Pang Shao to kill the commoners, when he treated the commoners well, when he spent all of his money on building the imperial mausoleum but didn't give the commoners food, when he was afraid of the meritorious officials, and when he organized people to falsely accuse Pang Shao. In the letter, he was written as a despicable and shameless person. Even his subjects swearing loyalty to him was the greatest insult. The most hateful part was that, in addition to the previous dynasty's Prince Zhou Lian's name, the letter also said that the world had no ruler and that only the virtuous could live in it. Li Qitian was an incapable ruler, especially during last year's famine. Not only did he not provide the commoners with money, but he also messed with the commoners behind his back to deal with Prince Zhongshan, who had gone bankrupt in order to feed the famine victims. Taitan attacked, but Li Qitian didn't allow Pang Shao and the other prince's troops to enter the capital. He even told them to take a detour. Although they naturally took a detour, Li Qitian's heart collapsed like never before. Li Qitian roared and tore up the notice. Seeing that Li Qitian was really angry, Xiong Jinshui, who followed him, revealed an expression that said, "I knew it would be like this." He hurriedly shouted, "Get out of the way! Get out of the way! The officers are handling the case." The people Li Qitian brought out immediately shouted in unison. Li Qitian tore the paper into pieces. When he turned his head and saw the commoner's inquisitive eyes, he felt as if he had been pressed to the ground and slapped. Chapter 1173. The commoners could tell that Li Qitian and Xiong Jinshui were either rich or noble. They couldn't afford to offend them. Some of the bolder ones immediately became curious about Li Qitian and kept glancing at him from time to time. Li Qitian took a deep breath to calm himself down. He didn't want to do anything to the onlookers on the spot. He really wanted to reveal his identity as the emperor so that these people wouldn't dare to act rashly. But when he was about to say it, he held it back. At this time, the emperor's image had been completely destroyed. If Li Qitian revealed his identity, he would most likely be questioned by the commoners. Could he arrest all the people who questioned him? Since he couldn't embarrass himself in front of the commoners. He had to maintain the image of the emperor, so now was not the time to reveal his identity. Li Qitian stood in place with his hands behind his back. He waited for Xiong Jinshui and his men to disperse the crowd. Then, he tore down the notice and held it in front of him with both hands. He didn't bother to look at the words on it. He just held the paper closer and carefully observed the big seal of the Imperial Jade Seal. It seemed to be real. Return to the palace. Order someone to open the storeroom and find the Imperial Edict of the previous dynasty to compare. Li Qitian went with a dark face. Xiong Jinshui hurriedly agreed and ordered someone to make the arrangements. Li Qitian called a few of his trusted officials over and compared it for an entire afternoon. Finally, they were able to confirm that the Imperial Jade Seal was indeed real. Even the parts of the seal with the bumps and bumps, the parts that weren't smooth enough, and the angles were the same. In the Imperial study, everyone was frowning and deep in thought. Li Qitian said, "Everyone, do you think the identity of the Prince of Beiji is real?" Back then, he had indeed ordered people to massacre the harem of Beiji. He didn't spare anyone who should be killed. But in such a big palace, he couldn't kill everyone by himself. Naturally, he had ordered his subordinates to do it. Among them, who was it that had carelessly let the prince go? Or was there someone who had intentionally left the prince behind? What Zhou? We have never heard of him. Li Qitian took a sip of tea and casually threw the teacup on the table. The tea spilled all over the table. Xiong Jinshui was so scared that he immediately wiped it with his sleeve. The officials looked at each other in dismay. One of them stood up and said, "Replying to your majesty, the previous dynasty did have a prince named Zhou Lian. He was born of Yupin. Back then, concubine, Yu was only a noble lady. She died after giving birth to a prince. The emperor of Northern Ji posthumously conferred her the title of concubine. The prince was then given to concubine Lian, who was the head of Fu Chun Palace, to raise. Later, it was recorded in the imperial clan court of the previous dynasty that concubine Lian's servants had failed in their duties. The little prince had drowned in the pond in the imperial garden when he was only 5 years old. The drowned prince was called Zhou Lian. However, no one would have thought that he was still alive. If he were still alive, he would be 16 or 17 years old. Li Qiqian narrowed his eyes coldly. He naturally understood the internal strife in the imperial harem. The incapable emperor of Northern Ji had no other abilities, but he had many children. It seemed that Zhou Lian was not valued. A prince who was supposed to be drowned has suddenly appeared. Li Qiqian sneered. Either the records were wrong, and he deliberately faked his death, or someone impersonated him. I think it should be the latter. A prince whose birth mother had died. He had been with concubine Lian since he was young. How could he have thought of preventing concubine Lian from faking her death and escaping? He must have really died. So now, someone was using the imperial jade seal of the previous dynasty to impersonate a prince of the previous dynasty. Li Qiqian made this judgment. He was so angry that the roots of his teeth were itching. Seeing the emperor like this, the officials did not dare to say anything. Li Qiqian rubbed his molars angrily. What do you mean? You dare to order the world in front of me after obtaining the imperial jade seal of the previous dynasty? That Zhou Lian is simply shameless. We should tell the constables below to search the entire city for notices that were not posted in time. From Li Qiqian's point of view, this was the best solution at the moment. Who on earth dares to spread rumors? Once I catch them, I will not let them off easily. The officials bowed their heads and hurriedly did as they were told. However, the process of searching was like searching for a needle in a haystack. The constables had limited manpower. Li Qiqian later sent more Jingji guards to help, but the house-to-house search was very disturbing to the people. They used the excuse of arresting a famous bandit, but it made the people panic. The entire capital was shrouded in tension and solemnity. The people who had just experienced the baptism of war were most afraid of such a thing happening. Everyone was discussing in private. What famous bandit? In the end, they all linked it to the matter of the notice a few days ago. Thinking about it this way, it made sense. The current emperor had seized power from the Beiji kingdom. Now that a prince of the Beiji kingdom had appeared, the current emperor was naturally afraid that the Beiji kingdom would rise from the ashes. There were many smart people. Everyone thought of this reason and naturally did not dare to discuss it anymore. Finally, the people in the capital no longer talked about the previous dynasty's prince and the imperial jade seal. However, the capital also showed signs of dark clouds looming over the city, and it was in a state of panic. Just as the Jingji guards were wantonly searching, notices were posted on several main streets overnight. The location of the imperial jade seal was the same as last time, and the content was more or less the same. However, this time, the previous dynasty's prince, Zhou Lian, used his status as a member of the imperial family to severely criticize Li Qiqian for being selfish and not caring about the lives of the people. The people had seen enough. When the Jingji guards and Shuntian prefecture arrived and tore down the notices, everyone had seen enough. The search continued for more than 20 days, but there were still no clues. At this time, a fast horse rushed into the capital. The rider on the horse raised a report of victory and shouted loudly, "Victory! Victory!" Prince Zhongshuan and Duke Dinghua attacked the Taitan capital and captured the Taitan Khan alive. Now that the Taitan people are without a leader, they have already ordered people to come out and surrender. The family of the Taitan Khan and the traitor Lu Heng have been escorted into the capital to await your majesty's decision. The rider on the horse urged the horse all the way to the imperial palace and repeated it loudly. He seemed very familiar with it. It was obvious that he had said this many times along the way. When the people heard this, they immediately clapped and cheered. The tension and haze of recent days were swept away. Everyone said, let's go to the city gate and see them escort the Tatars and traitors. Yes, yes, yes. For so many years, we have been bullied. We have really vented our anger. Prince Zhongshuan and Duke Dinghua are mighty. This battle really wasn't easy. The people were jubilant. Even the elderly and the people who had experienced the Taitan's iron hooves were so excited that they wiped away tears. It was because of the years of war that their lives were precarious and they wandered from place to place. What they longed for was a peaceful, stable, and self-sufficient life. Prince Zhongshuan and Lu Hong worked together to achieve this. Chapter 1174. The Taitan Khan had once bowed his head to the Zhou after his defeat and brought his family to the capital to pay tribute. Who would have thought that in just a few years, the Taitan Khan would become a prisoner? Such a huge success made the commoners celebrate and rejoice. For many years, the capital had never seen such a lively scene, even during the new year. The current scene could be said to be a celebration of the entire nation. Many patriotic vendors had even begun to prepare rice to give to the poor and beggars to celebrate such a huge victory. The liveliness on the streets naturally alarmed Shuntian Prefecture. The Shuntian Prefecture's magistrate immediately arranged for his subordinates to go to the streets together with the Jingji guards to maintain order among the commoners, forcing the commoners to gather around the streets. If any of the commoners pushed, they would immediately be scolded and even hit by the Jingji guards with their scabbards. In this way, the chaos on the streets could cool down again. At this moment, the sound of horse hooves and wheels could be heard from the city gate. Everyone craned their necks to look and immediately saw a row of prisoner carriages being escorted by the border army. The first prisoner carriage had a man with disheveled hair and an unshaven beard. Looking at the tattered clothes on his body, it was obvious that he was a Taitan noble. However, there was still a lot of mud on his body, and he was squatting in an awkward and painful position. Everyone began to guess whether or not this was the Taitan Khan. The Tiger Army, escorting the prisoner, loudly announced, "This is the Taitan Utkin Khan." The commoners immediately cheered. Some people shouted, "Long live the Tatars," while others were extremely angry. The old and new grudges were added together, and they angrily grabbed mud and threw it at the prisoner carriage. There were also those whose families had been killed by the Tatars. They simply rushed onto the prisoner carriage and grabbed Utkin Khan's hair, wanted to pull him out. The escorting soldiers were already used to this scene. After all, this was the case everywhere they passed. The commoners had finally gotten their revenge, so everyone was very excited. They even understood Wang Ye's intentions behind this arrangement. Under such circumstances, they didn't believe that Utkin Khan wouldn't say anything when he saw your majesty. Sichin was not the only one who was hit by the mud. Everyone in the row of prison wagons behind him was hit as well. A commoner pointed at the third-last prisoner cart and asked in confusion, "That seems to be a female prisoner. She is indeed a female criminal. This is too dirty. You guys don't know this, but this is the daughter-in-law of the Liu family. Her husband committed suicide before he was caught. Now, she's the only weak woman left. She has to take the blame for her husband. How pitiful." Someone shook his head and retorted, "You only saw her pitiful state. You didn't see how she instigated trouble and harmed others. Prince Zhongshuan is not a useless person. A woman who could be captured by him and paraded through the streets must be unforgivable." Yes, many commoners echoed. Wang Yi is not someone who bullies women. If she hadn't committed such a heinous crime, Wang Yi wouldn't have treated her this way. At this moment, the prisoner cart passed by in front of them. The woman in the cage had disheveled hair and her face was covered in dirt. Her body also emitted an unpleasant stench, causing people to cover their noses and retreat. But she was like a wooden person staring blankly ahead. It was as if no sound could enter her ears and no sight could enter her eyes. Some people recognized Bien Ruhan. After all, the Bien family was once considered a relative of the imperial family. Bien Ruhan flaunted his nobility and often walked the streets. His daily life was to stroll through the streets. Now that they saw her in such a situation, everyone sighed. Someone even shouted, "She deserves it. Collaborating with the enemy and betraying the country is a heinous crime." Just the words "collaborating with the enemy and betraying the country is a heinous crime" completely extinguished some people's temporary pity. The one surnamed Liu lured the Tatars into the pass and even fought all the way to the foot of the capital, almost breaking in. How could the commoners forget the fear they had suffered in such a short period of time? Wouldn't everyone feel fear and hate after the fact? The prisoner cart continued to move forward. Finally, the commoners followed closely behind the prisoner cart and shouted loudly, "Your Majesty severely punishes these sinners. Kill the Tatan Khan. Kill the traitors. Avenge the innocent commoners who died unjustly." The commoners' shouts shook the sky. Among the crowd, Qin Yining was dressed in a coarse cloth jacket. Xiaoyu skillfully disguised him as an ordinary young man. When he saw the procession gradually moving away, his lips curled into a slight smile. She didn't believe that Li Qiqian would still be able to sit firmly on the dragon throne in the face of such strong calls and the situation in the imperial court. "Master, let's go back." Jing Zhe, who was disguised as an ordinary farmer, whispered to her. Qin Yining nodded and disappeared into the crowd with Jing Zhe. In a field on the outskirts of the city, Xiaoyu was sitting on a chair under the eaves of the veranda and drinking tea. When she saw Qin Yining and Jing Zhe return, she hurriedly put down her teacup and stood up. She bowed and said, "Princess Consort, you're back." Qin Yining smiled and nodded. "I'm back. Sir Xia was right. The city is very lively today. It's as if the commoners are celebrating the new year." Ji Yun, Bing Tang, and Lian Xiaozhou came out of the main room when they heard Qin Yining's voice. "It's a pity that we didn't get to see it. I didn't let you go out because I was afraid of encountering danger. I didn't dare to stay and came back after Jing Zhe, and I saw the situation clearly." Lian Xiaozhou smiled and said, "Sister, do you think I made any progress today?" Lian Xiaozhou was wearing a lake blue robe with long sleeves. Her hair was tied up in a high bun, and the rest of her long hair was half draped over her shoulders. Xie moved her hands slightly and thickened her eyebrows. If Lian Xiaozhou stood still, she would look like a young master. Unfortunately, Lian Xiaozhou was a woman. She was different from Qiu Feishan, who always wore men's clothes. Her temperament was also different when she walked. It was easy to reveal flaws. Therefore, Lian Xiaozhou had been wearing men's clothes these days. She deliberately changed some of her habits so that the truth wouldn't be revealed at a critical moment and let people know that the orphan of Beiji was not a prince, but a princess. In fact, Lian Xiaozhou had once asked why she had to be a prince. Couldn't she just tell the truth and say that she was a princess? But at that time, Qin Yining took her hand and explained to her carefully, "In today's world, men are superior to women. If the one who took out the imperial jade seal was a woman, which minister would care about it? But if it was a prince, it would be different. Because the prince has the imperial jade seal in his hands, he can rightfully inherit the throne. Although he doesn't need to inherit the throne, he can at least speak with a stronger tone and create a greater deterrence for some people." The deterrence that Qin Yining mentioned was naturally Li Qiqian. She came up with this idea to add fuel to the fire for Pang Xiao. If she revealed Lian Xiaozhou's true identity, she was afraid that no one would take her seriously. After Qin Yining praised Lian Xiaozhou became even more confident. She grabbed Jing Zhe and the others to learn how to be a man. At this moment, the sound of a baby crying came from inside. This crying was contagious. When one cried, the other cried. Qin Yining hurried into the room to take a look. When the wet nurse saw Qin Yining, she hurriedly bowed. Brother and sister just woke up. Perhaps they are hungry. Qin Yining saw that everything was fine and heaved a sigh of relief. She had brought everyone here to live in seclusion in order to wait for Pang Zhao's return. Fortunately, there were many things to do in the imperial court. Li Qiqian had to deal with the Tatan's defeat and surrender. Not only did he have to deal with the people who had just arrived in the capital, but he also had to catch the person who had posted the notice. Thinking of this, Qin Yining wanted to cry for Li Qiqian. Percent at the same time, Pang Xiao received news from the capital. Wang Yi, the prisoners have already arrived in the capital. The people in the capital are cheering, and it is extremely lively. They are all praising how satisfying this battle was. There is still no conclusion as to how your majesty will deal with the prisoners. In addition, there have been notices denouncing your majesty in the capital again. This subordinate and the others have not yet found where your majesty is staying. Pang Xiao nodded and allowed Jinghu Wei to rest. He turned and smiled at Su Weiji and the other strategists. Su Weiji's smile was very relaxed. Your majesty's move is too beautiful. When I saw old Xie's letter a few days ago, I found it hard to believe that all of this was your majesty's decision. Wang Yi, you are lucky to have a virtuous wife like your majesty. And to have a virtuous wife like your majesty who can fight side by side with you. This is really a blessing. He turned to Qin Huaiyuan and cupped his hands. Elder Qin has taught me well. Qin Huaiyuan waved his hand. How can you say that? That child really hasn't enjoyed the blessing of being by my side for many days. Perhaps the tempering outside has made him more cautious and mature. Father-in-law, Pang Xiao asked, how do you think we should react? Qin Huaiyuan smiled and said, didn't Zhishi already have a judgment in her heart? In fact, we don't have to be overly anxious right now. There is only one word for everything. Wait. Wait? Yes. Duke Ding also told me before that after this battle, the Emperor will definitely settle the score with Zhishi. Originally, I wanted to use some method to raise the voices of the common people for you to become more popular. I didn't expect that before I did anything. Sister, he had already done it. Her method is excellent. This way, not only can it divert attention, but it can also force the Emperor to make some wrong decisions. It can also continue to establish Zhishi's image in front of the people of the world. Su Weiji blinked, then cupped his hands and smiled. Elder Qin, forgive me for being slow-witted. I actually didn't completely understand the meaning of your words for a moment. Qin Huaiyuan smiled and said, it's very simple. Sister, he has already done the first two parts. Next, we have to think of a way to establish Zhishi's image. That's why I said we have to wait. Su Weiji turned around and immediately nodded approvingly. That's right. The Emperor is used to being high and mighty. How can he be willing to be inferior to others in all aspects? The more he thinks this way, the more he can use it. Now is the time when the people's public opinion is at its peak. I believe that soon, everyone will know how the Emperor treats his meritorious officials. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.